This guy with the cool face is our main character, Ian Hop. He's one of the unluckiest people in this society, because he was transported into a game with a hellish difficulty level where just a little carelessness means he could get a game over at any moment. To begin, it was a pirated game that Ian downloaded called Aquilonia Set, in a brutal fantasy world filled with conspiracy and betrayal. His current body, Ian Hop, is a character Ian created before getting into the game, a troublesome mage. Aquilonia was originally a game where players had to choose a single path. That was the only way to handle the difficulty of the game's second half, but this genius didn't like that. If he needed stamina, he'd put points into stamina. If he wanted to use a sword, he'd buy a sword. And the lame-ass reason Ian gave for this, it was because he was a solo player who had to fight alone, so he had no choice but to put points into every single stat. And thanks to this idiotic way of allocating points, Ian's character became bugged. After realizing his character was broken, he tried to delete it and start over with a new one. But right after he clicked, the last thing Ian saw was his computer screen flickering and displaying some strange information. And when he woke up, Ian was in a swamp, and he was quickly surrounded by all sorts of enemies and monsters. Ian also quickly realized he was inside the game, and this place he was standing in was called the training area. What did I do wrong? What did I do to be sent to a place like this? Questions like this kept running through Ian's head, but he didn't have long to think about this bizarre situation because if he made even one tiny mistake, he'd be pushing up daisies in an instant, and so, after half a year had passed in this damn swamp, Ian had finally gotten used to this brutal world. And as of now, it's officially been 1 year since he got sucked into this damn game. Not long ago, he accepted a quest from this old man to wipe out a bunch of kobolds. In return, the man would give him free drinks at his tavern. For someone like Ian, who had been through countless battles wiping out a bunch of kobolds, was nothing difficult. Everything was going smoothly. Until these bastards set the forest on fire to kill the kobolds, even though they knew full well that Ian had already gone in there to wipe them out. Damn that fire. I wonder if those kobolds will even survive, the one-eyed man muttered. Just then, the bald guy turned forward and asked the commander, "That mage is no pushover. Should we retreat?" Hearing that, the leader yelled, "You fools don't lose your nerve! Look at the size of that fire!" His mana can't have recovered yet. But right after he said that, he suddenly sensed something. He quickly turned around and signaled to his men, "He's here!" Following their gaze, Ian started walking out from the fire. As he walked, he grumbled, "Damn, this thing is heavy." In his hand, Ian was still holding the severed head of a kobold. Its eyes were still open in death. Looking back at Ian, he was a little surprised as he came out of the forest because a few rude guys were blocking his path. Meanwhile, on the other side, the leader spoke up. "You'd better walk away quietly, kid. Don't even think about pulling anything. Put the head down, and I'll spare your life." His words made Ian cover his face in exasperation. Then he smiled and said, "If you insist." With that, Ian tossed the kobold's head to the ground, and immediately used his magic. Seeing Ian instantly conjure magic, the leader was stunned. When the hell did he start chanting? But he reacted a moment later, yelling at the bushes to the side, "Fire!" On the leader's command, a guy popped up from the bushes, a grunt holding a crossbow who fired at Ian, but Ian had already seen it coming. Just before the bolt could hit him, Ian used some kind of magic to bend the bolt's trajectory, causing it to fly straight into the bald guy's calf. Seeing this, the other henchmen stood there completely dumbfounded, not understanding what just happened. But the leader quickly shouted, "Don't just stand there gawking, kill him!" After that, both of them charged forward, planning to gang up on Ian. But Ian remained perfectly calm. He just took a light step back while conjuring a spell in his palm. Then he slammed his palms together. The spell activated immediately, and this magic was pretty flashy. Once activated, the spell began to release waves of cold air that spread outwards, cold enough to freeze everything within a radius of several meters. And the one-eyed fella being at the front took the full brunt of it and was instantly frozen into an ice statue. Then the ice statue fell forward and shattered into a million pieces. Thus ended the life of a bandit. Back to the leader, who was now completely shocked, because Ian using ice magic was completely different from the information he'd gathered. From what he'd heard on the street, damn it, isn't he supposed to be a fire mage? So that means the fire was caused by an explosion, not by magic. Meanwhile, after dealing with one of them, Ian turned to the leader and asked, "Are the other two hiding in the bushes?" As he spoke, he started using fire magic to create fireballs that hovered around him. Then Ian divided up the fireballs. He began blasting the surrounding area continuously, not even bothering to wait for the leader's answer. Why waste time? Just burn everything down. And this random bombardment was quite effective. The lackeys who had been hiding in the bushes trying to ambush him earlier were now begging for their lives in the face of this terrifying firepower. But Ian didn't care and just kept firing. By the time he stopped, only the leader and the bald guy were left alive. But not for long. Ian approached the bald guy and gave him a pat on the head. This fiery pat sent the bald man to join his friends immediately. As for the leader, after witnessing this scene, he was so scared he couldn't even stand. "No way! How can you have both fire and ice attributes at the same time?" he said, his body trembling violently. "Why, because I'm a trash character, of course." As Ian spoke, he picked up a nearby sword and sent the guy off to join his underlings, so he'd have some company. Afterwards, Ian picked up the kobold's head and brought it back to the tavern. The old tavern owner was a bit surprised to see that Ian had actually completed the quest. "That's amazing. You cleared out the entire kobold camp. I wasn't expecting that at all." But thank you. But before the old man could finish speaking, Ian slammed a sword down on the table. As soon as the owner opposite him saw the sword, he broke out in a cold sweat because he knew exactly who it belonged to. That sword? So you've met those knights? Hearing this, Ian replied, yeah, they were up to some dirty business. So I took care of all of them before coming here. Is there anyone else around here that needs to be dealt with? Ian asked in a cold voice. He wanted to know if the old tavern owner knew whether those guys had any accomplices or close acquaintances, so he could eliminate them all at once to prevent future trouble. The old man understood Ian's intention and quickly said, don't worry, they're not worth your time. Those scumbags never did anything anyway. All they did was drink and eat all day, don't you see? Just then a man drinking nearby chimed in. That's right. They called themselves knights, but they acted no different from bandits. Yeah, stop complaining, you punk. If you hadn't gotten to them first, I would have dealt with them myself. Hearing that, Ian sighed. It seemed he had really been overthinking things. Then, a notification panel suddenly appeared in front of Ian. Side quest. Clear the kobold camp and defeat the kobold leader. Status kobold camp. Cleared 1 out of 1. Defeat kobold leader 1 out of 1. You have completed the quest. The appearance of this notification panel didn't surprise Ian much. As usual, the reward is nothing special, Ian thought with boredom. Then he put away the sword and turned to the old shopkeeper. You haven't forgotten about the quest fee, have you? Don't worry. As promised, you can stay at this tavern for free for the rest of your life. Is there anything else you need? In that case, please prepare some hot water for me, Ian said as he started heading back to his room. A while later, Ian was relaxing in the bathtub, but suddenly he sensed a presence. He quickly grabbed his sword and swung it behind him, but the person who appeared was just a worker from the inn. Seeing this, Ian hurriedly stopped his sword. However, his action had scared the maid to death. I just brought some water, she said, terrified. After hearing her, Ian slowly sheathed his sword and said, sorry about that. I thought you were an assassin. Then shall I pour the water into the tub for you, sir? If it's too hot, just let me know. As she spoke, she slowly added water to the tub, but her eyes were glued to Ian's abs. Ian noticed this and spoke up. Don't get any funny ideas. Hearing that, the maid quickly stood up and said, I wasn't doing anything. Then, she started to focus more on adding the water, while Ian became lost in his own thoughts. Thanks to this character's base stats, I was able to survive in this starting area. Otherwise, I would have been dead long ago. Still, the stats are what they are. And the character Ian Hop is still a bugged character ever since I was transported here. The map of this world has expanded, the enemies have gotten stronger, and now there are even people and villages I've never seen before. For now, there haven't been any problems. That's because the stat difference between me and these country bumpkins is huge. But if I just stay in one place, whatever comes next will definitely kill me. I have to get stronger even if it's just by a little bit. Hopefully there's something useful at the kobold camp. I should have told those idiots to go look for it. And so the next morning he hired some thugs to go to the kobold camp to find any remaining items. We can take this stuff. Yeah. Sir Ian said we should just bring back anything that looks valuable. Meanwhile, Ian was wondering if those guys were doing exactly as he'd told them to. Right now he was at the kobold leader's corpse. The main reason he had to come back was to retrieve the gem from its chest. Next, Ian took out a sword and used it to pry the stone out. The old tavern owner saw this and seemed a bit puzzled. Is this gem cursed? Yeah, something like that. It contains tainted mana. And something else. Hearing this, the old man thought for a moment, then said, Are you saying this leader used black magic or something? More accurately, some bastard embedded this thing into the monster's body so it could use it, Ian said. What if you get bewitched by that gem? Bewitched. If someone were to be bewitched by this stone, they'd become a puppet, a new toy for that bastard. Cutting to 2 young men from the collection team. Johnson, have you checked everything here yet? Whoa, what's that gem? It's beautiful. Did you find it? The black-haired young man said, seeing Johnson holding a gem. Johnson replied in an excited voice, Yeah, I just found it. I plan to bring it home for my mother. As he spoke, he turned to look at the black-haired young man with a very strange expression on his face. Back to Ian. He was examining all the items he'd gotten from the kobold village. Not bad. This must be the stuff from the kobold leader's tent. It includes mana stones. A crimson eye necklace strength, +1 stamina, +1 spirit, +3, and silver coins. But this is the most important thing, he said, picking up the red stone from before. It's a tainted high-grade mana essence. Now all I have to do is purify it and I'll be able to use it. But this isn't the place to purify the stone, so he put it into the spatial pouch in his inner pocket. I know my spatial pouch is small, but it's still convenient having been transported here. Somehow I've kept the level and skills of the character Ian Thorpe, but there's a difference. The game's start its progression quests items. Everything has changed. This made Ian wonder, then why haven't my level and skills been reset? Are they showing me mercy because they're afraid I'd die too quickly? Perhaps whoever brought me to this world has left things this way. I'm very grateful for that. But it would have been even better if they'd been a bit more generous. Just then, the old tavern owner, who had been searching for a while, found an axe and asked, Hey, Sir Knight, am I really allowed to take this? You are, but it's not free. What do you mean? We'll talk about that later. For now, let's head to the entrance. Let's see if you've done the task I gave you properly. After that, Ian went outside and gathered the lackeys to collect everything they had found. Seeing the full bags his henchmen were carrying made Ian happy. Good, everyone's bags are full. However, these rascals are known to have sticky fingers, so to be sure, Ian started using magic to ensure they weren't hiding anything for themselves. Searching like this isn't hard, but it's better to check. As he said that, he used the Monoscan clairvoyance skill. Instantly, Ian's vision turned a light blue. Seeing this, the henchmen started to get nervous. It seemed they had hidden something after all, but luckily, they hadn't hidden anything special enough to catch Ian's attention like a magical item. And so the first two guys passed Ian's inspection. He then started walking while observing the rest. Nothing. But just as he thought that, he stopped in his tracks. Because right then, in his field of view inside the blonde guy's hip pouch, an unusual color appeared. It indicated an item that possessed mana. This sight just made Ian facepalm. He had only intended to check just in case. But it turns out some idiot really dared to touch my stuff. How can you be so stupid? Ian muttered. His words made the blonde guy, who was opposite him, jump. Huh, what was that, sir? And to answer this guy's question, Ian placed his sword against the man's neck and said coldly, "Show me what's in your bag." Seeing this, the blonde-haired man broke out in a cold sweat. His voice started to stammer, I don't understand what you're saying. But just as he was about to explain further, his voice suddenly changed. After that, his eyes gradually turned red. His whole body began to emit a strange aura. The other hired hands saw this and quickly backed away, shouting, "What the hell, Johnson?" But the Johnson they knew had already lost consciousness. His entire body began to contort into incredibly bizarre positions. Seeing this, Ian sighed and drew his sword. "So he's been possessed by the curse, huh? I guess we were never meant to get along from the start." As he spoke, he swung his sword, aiming straight for Johnson's neck. But just as the blade was about to sever the man's head, it was blocked by his hand, or more accurately, he caught the sword between two fingers. With an incredibly cool expression, he said, "You shouldn't aim for the neck," Johnson said in a taunting voice, but seeing this, Ian was too tired to even respond. "Oh, really? I thought this was just an ordinary curse, but it seems there's something else going on." At that moment, Johnson on the other side began to raise his voice at Ian. "You treacherous bastard, you've disturbed the place where I planted my seed. You're also the one who hid my seed, aren't you?" The man's words made Ian think. Does he mean that gem? Maybe when I put it in my dimensional pouch, he lost his connection to it. That must be why he's saying this. If I hadn't been here, this village would have been raided by those goblins. To him, I'm definitely an unknown variable. Realizing this, Ian understood everything and decided to taunt the man. "You're in quite a hurry, aren't you? I'll be sure to put your mana to good use. Black magician." His words drove the possessed Johnson across from him into a rage. "You arrogant bastard!" he shouted furiously. At the same time, Johnson's aura became much more powerful. In particular, his hand transformed to look like a demon's. Then, with just a little bit of force, he was able to shatter Ian's sword. Seeing this, Ian quickly backed away to create some distance, not forgetting to curse the man in front of him. "Damn it, I just found this sword." But before he could curse any further, Johnson instantly lunged in front of him, swinging his arm to attack. Ian quickly used his sword, the broken blade, to strike at the hands coming towards him. But unfortunately, it could only knock the hands away, not sever them. It was probably because after being enhanced, his hands were no longer human. Moreover, Johnson was only using his hands to attack. Therefore, his swings were incredibly fast. His swift and sharp blows forced Ian to retreat continuously. Seeing this, the mad dog Johnson was overjoyed. "Looks like I've got you overwhelmed, huh? Let me teach you some manners." But he only got to laugh for about 3 seconds before Ian sent a fireball straight at him. It flew right into him. The black magician's eyes widened in shock, but at this distance there was no way to dodge. Immediately after, a large explosion occurred, and Ian had already prepared 2 or 3 more fireballs. Just in case the man didn't die, he'd get a face full of fire. And as expected, 1 fireball wasn't enough to kill him. Back to the black magician, as soon as he managed to sit up, he growled at Ian, "You! Just what in the world are you?" But Ian on the other side had no intention of exchanging any more words with him. "You talk too much." After saying that, he fired all his fireballs at the man. To be sure, he even added an even bigger one. After being hit by the barrage, Johnson's entire body was charred black, but he still wouldn't die. He just had to bark out a few threats before he could go. "You're one of Crimson's people." "Very well. We will definitely meet again. Don't forget that the one who will torture your soul is me." Before he could finish, Ian swung his sword and sent the man's head flying. But you had to admit this guy was ridiculously tough. Even though his head had been chopped off and was rolling away, he still managed to mumble a few last words, "necromancer," back to Ian after he had taken the man down. He offered a piece of advice to the corpse. "No need to state your name after you've already been beaten." With that said, he thrust his hand straight into Johnson's chest and pulled out a stone exactly like the one he had taken before. "This gem is even smaller than the leader's. Just as I thought. It seems there's more than one." Then he slowly stood up and looked directly at the hired hands in front of him. "All right, who else is holding one?" Several days passed. Today, Ian went out on a mission but returned earlier than usual. The old shopkeeper saw him and asked, "Finished your mission early again, huh? I still can't believe you're a mage." Hearing this, Ian started to grumble. "Watch that mouth of yours, old man. Don't worry, you look nothing like those other weird mages. Their reputation isn't the best, so I understand why you hid your story at first. Enough talk. Do you want me to roast that beard of yours?" As he said this, Ian started to conjure a flame in his palm. Seeing this, the old man quickly backed away, saying, all right, no need. I was just worried about you, really. I don't think the Black Mage will let this go. Ian, hearing this, coldly replied, "Worry about yourself." In reality, Ian already had his own plans in mind. He'd have to deal with that guy sooner or later, so there was nothing to worry about. For now, he had completed all the tasks from the tavern, and the side quests in the village. But the problem was all these quests gave pitifully little experience. It was probably time to move on. Ian began to plan for the future, unaware that a few strangers were currently searching for him. "You were right, sir. The one who destroyed the kobold group is in this village." And not long after, this group had indeed found their way to the tavern where Ian was staying. "Good morning, sir. I heard there's someone here who single-handedly wiped out an entire army of kobolds. Are you that person?" The freckle-faced young man said this while looking at Ian. As for Ian's reaction, after seeing them, he could only curse silently in his mind. Damn it, he thought, because the knight behind the freckle-faced man was no ordinary person and had a huge impact on the story. This person's name was Mevaloran, also known as the Blood-Soaked Avenger. Mevaloran was originally a knight of Azalane, but blinded by hatred. He became a mid-boss in the first chapter of Aquilonia. Ian didn't know the reason why, but he'd heard that he had stormed the palace alone to kill King Ageland. Putting that aside, even when facing death's door, but all of his attacks were critical hits, as the mid-boss of the first chapter dealing with him was impossible. And now this monster was here looking for Ian. Returning to the present after hearing the freckle-faced man's words, Ian gestured for them to look at the head of the kobold leader, which he had mounted on the wall. At this, both of them stepped into the inn and approached the head to get a closer look. "Amazing. Even the mercenaries on the border are afraid to clash with them, yet you managed to wipe them out so easily," the freckle-faced young man said with a voice full of admiration. Then he composed himself and turned to introduce himself. "My apologies for the abrupt questions. We had to confirm if you were the person we're looking for. Allow me to introduce you. This is a follower of Lucola and an apostle of Tyron, the guardian of the southern border, and the treasured sword of Angeline Knight Mevaloran." Ian now had a chance to observe the knight more closely. "I never expected this. But he looks so different now. It seems he hasn't been consumed by hatred yet. But that's a good thing. Meeting him while he was on a rampage, I'd have to run for my life." Turning back to the freckle-faced young man, he was now introducing himself. "And I am Philip, his subordinate. On behalf of my master, I greet you. It's a pleasure to meet you." After hearing Philip, Ian replied wearily, "I'm Ian Hop. As you can see, I'm just an ordinary mercenary. Why would you people come all the way here looking for me?" After hearing this, Philip quickly asked, "Did you not notice anything strange in the kobold village?" After hearing this, Ian was a bit puzzled. "Strange like traces of black magic or something." "Something heretical," Philip said. The fact that these two knew about the Black Mage's existence was a bit of a surprise to Ian. Another surprise. I've met Mevaloran before he was corrupted. And now they're also after that damn mage. I should test them. With that thought, Ian started to bluff. "I'm not sure. Even if there was, I'm a mercenary. I don't act out of righteousness unless we're making a deal. The more money, the better. If the knight here makes an offer, I'll do it." As he spoke, he turned to look at Meave. This action seemed disrespectful towards a knight like Meave. So Philip was about to shout, but Meave immediately raised a hand, signaling him to stop. Then Meave began to speak. "He's not wrong. My apologies for the discourtesy." As he spoke, he began to remove his helmet, revealing the face of a beautiful woman with red hair. She then sat down and explained. "I'm usually reserved when I first meet people, which is why Philip speaks for me. I meant no offense." And as she said this across from her, our boy Ian was still frozen in shock. Because of Meave's appearance, she was actually a woman. Now I remember, I never really heard Meave's voice clearly before. The only things I remember are her breathing and her whispers. Meanwhile, Meave continued, "Shall we proceed? I will pay for any information you provide." "Understood." The young man Philip heard this, immediately understood, pulled out a pouch of money and handed it to Meave. She then took one gold coin from the pouch and placed it in front of Ian. The moment he saw the money, Ian smiled brightly. "A gold coin! The highest value currency in the kingdom, huh? I hope this helps you understand," Meave said sincerely. The seriousness of this matter. Once he had the money, Ian didn't hesitate to sell it. From what I know, someone has been intentionally raising those kobolds. The third leader is using corrupted mana that person set up and is growing stronger by the day. I discovered the leader has a gem containing corrupted mana embedded in its chest. This is the Dark Mage's gem. As he spoke, he placed the red stone on the table. Then he recounted what the Dark Mage had said. "He said that because I took it. His plan was ruined. One day he will definitely find me and kill me." Ian's words made Meave, who was sitting across from him, break out in a cold sweat from worry. "I have a really bad feeling about this. You were right. A seed of darkness has been sown in this kingdom. Now I need to confirm his identity. I suppose we'll have to tail him. There are 10 gold pieces in this bag. I want that gem." As she spoke, she tossed her coin purse to Ian. Seeing this, Ian hurriedly grabbed the money and weighed it in his hand. After confirming the amount, he smiled brightly and said, "All right then, you can take it." Then Meave made Ian another offer. "There's one more thing. If possible, I'd like you to escort me back to the palace as the sole witness." Right after she said this, a quest notification suddenly appeared in front of Ian. Side quest: escort Meave Lauren and eliminate the Dark Mage, reward 1 skill point. This quest appeared out of nowhere. It made Ian overjoyed. I knew meeting these two wasn't a mistake. The reward is a whole skill point. I can't let this get away. Thinking this, Ian gave a sinister smile and said, like I said before, I'm a mercenary. If you want me to join you, we have to make a deal. Ian's bottomless greed made Philip, who was standing nearby, cry out. Good grief, you've already taken so much money. What more do you want? His shouting made Ian start to grumble. You're so loud. And more importantly, if you hire me, I'll help you find him. Hearing this, Meave quickly asked, You mean you know where he's hiding? No, but I can find him. This is my line of work, Ian said. Of course he was just bluffing, but at the very least he had a hunch about where the Dark Mage might be hiding. He then started to explain, Besides, he hates my guts. If you want his target to join in, you'll have to pay extra. His words made Meave hesitate for a moment, and then she said, All right, I want to hire you Ian Hop. I'll stake my own name on this deal. And just like that, the deal was struck. Immediately after, Ian began to lead them in search of that bastard Dark Mage. But it seemed the place Ian was leading them wasn't very pleasant, so Meave had to turn back and ask, Hey, Ian, are you sure the Dark Mage is in a place like this? Hearing her from behind, Ian replied, Yeah, his hiding place is most likely the Graveyard Forest. The Graveyard Forest is also known as the Forest of No Return. That forest was created by the ancient fairies. Atop a graveyard. It was originally a burial place for soldiers, but as time went on, even commoners began to leave their graves there. Gradually, the fog in the forest grew thicker, and those who entered could never find their way out. Back to the conversation after hearing this, Meave asked doubtfully, But the forest is in the middle of the kingdom. Do you really think the Dark Mage would hide in a place like that? After hearing her, Ian began to explain, You see, he's still sowing his seeds everywhere, just waiting for the day to harvest. He would stay in secluded places to avoid trouble. And the fact that this forest is in the middle of the kingdom makes it even better, right? A perfect place to plot where no one would expect. At this point, he started to observe the sky and then suggested, I'll tell you more on the way there. But for now, let's rest for a bit. Mev agreed after hearing him. All right, it's getting late anyway, Philip then suggested. In that case, let's go deeper into the forest. There's a stream nearby where travelers often rest for the night. Hearing this amateur talk, Ian quickly warned, There are wolves in the forest. I don't want to lose any sleep. Philip was startled by this and said, Oh, I didn't know. Well, then I'll go gather some firewood. As he said this, he rushed into the forest. Seeing this, Ian sighed. Ha! This greenhorn, he's going to attract the whole forest. Ian spoke casually, unaware that behind the group a massive pack of wolves was lying in wait, ready to devour them. And especially among the pack, there was one. It looked just like an elite monster after a while. The group began to rest and prepare food, and during this time, after walking with Meave for a while, Ian realized something. There wasn't a single trace in her eyes. Of a blood-soaked avenger, the one who drowned the palace in a sea of blood when she killed the king. Perhaps she had her own reasons, just like any other villain. He then started to take out a pre-prepared lunchbox from his spatial bag. Philip, seeing this, joyfully exclaimed, We finally get to open that bag. As for the story behind this lunchbox, it was a gift from the maid at the inn given to Ian the day before they departed. Wait, sir, Ian, please take this. I've prepared some cold cuts and cheese. I hope you have a safe journey. That's what she had said, and it was driving Philip crazy with envy. Seeing his expression, Ian spoke up. You just want plain rice, huh? You're going to share? Philip said in surprise. If you can keep your mouth shut, then yes. As he spoke, Ian started to open the lunchbox, but just then, his hand suddenly stopped and Ian's face turned serious. Quiet. His voice made the atmosphere fall silent. Beside him, Meave also noticed something and said, It seems we have an uninvited guest. As she spoke, she started to put her helmet back on. Immediately after, the sound of wolves howling began to echo all around them. Hearing this, Philip's face turned pale with fear. Wolves! But how are they so close? But Philip didn't need to wonder any longer, because at that moment in the forest ahead, countless pairs of eyes appeared. Seeing this, Philip's voice stuttered. What are they? Are they all wolves? What do we do? His voice was filled with fear. Meanwhile, Ian started to curse. Damn it, I guess we won't have time to eat. Just then, from the opposite side, wolves began to rush out of the forest surrounding them. After seeing the forms of these wolves, Meave began to assess the situation. Judging by their size, they're just regular wolves. Do you think this has anything to do with the Dark Mage? I don't know, but we'll find out after we kill them, Ian said coldly. You're right. Philip, get back and guard the horses. As she spoke, she drew her sword and moved forward. But right after that, when she noticed Ian was also preparing to fight, she quickly said, Ian, you stay back and guard the horses too. Hearing this, Ian immediately refused. I'm not guarding them. You do it. What? Meave exclaimed in shock, hearing Ian tell her to stay and guard while wearing that armor. How are you going to chase them down in that? Ian said. After hearing him, Meave was about to explain something, but just then Philip, who was surrounded by the wolf pack behind them, cried out for help. Master, I think these wolves are going to attack from this side too. Hearing Philip, Ian advised the woman beside him, Don't worry about me. This is something only I can do. Besides, you have nothing to lose. At that moment, Philip's cry for help rang out again. With no other choice, Meave had to turn back to rescue him. At the same time, she warned Ian, Don't die. Hearing that, Ian started to whisper, Damn it, you're the one to worry about. Then he turned to face the wolves in front of him. There are so many of them, Ian mumbled. Just as he said this, a wolf leaped straight at him. But with a year's experience in slaughter, Ian easily dodged the snap of its jaws, but the close call still ticked Ian off. Damn it, these wretched wolves! I could kill them all with just a bit of fire magic, but I can't risk revealing my trump card. I don't know when she might turn on me. Thinking this, Ian gently stepped back and mumbled, "If I don't want to draw attention, this is probably the best option." As he spoke, he began to use the low-level dark spell Wind Blade. The low-level dark spell Wind Blade is a skill that allows the user to absorb wind to increase their movement speed. And if the user wishes, they can turn it into a sharp blade just like now as two wolves charged at Ian at the same time. He swung his wind energy-filled sword straight at the necks of the two. Normally, it would be difficult to make such a clean cut, but thanks to the enhancement from the wind energy, Ian easily sliced through the heads of both wolves. But at that very moment, another wolf lunged forward to ambush him. Before he could react, its jaws clamped down on him, and at the moment it was about to use its strength to crush Ian, it immediately realized that its teeth couldn't possibly sink into this small body. That's because Ian had used the low-level dark spell Wind Shield. Right after he used some damn skill to escape the wolf's jaws, after getting free, he didn't forget to throw a taunt at this mangy mutt. "Hurts, doesn't it? I bet it felt like your teeth just broke." Right after saying this, Ian sent it to its grave with a single sword strike finishing off the wolf. With a badass expression, Ian didn't forget to check on his two teammates behind him to see how they were holding up. And the result was quite surprising. Over here, both Meave and Philip were doing great. Ian immediately rushed in to help, thinking to himself, "They're more formidable than I thought." Even the ordinary-looking Philip is providing great support. But right after that, Ian suddenly realized something was wrong. "This is taking too much time, damn it! This must be how the pack leader hunts. I have to find it quickly." With that thought, Ian immediately used magical detection clairvoyance to search for the pack leader. At that moment, streams of mana began to appear in his vision. And by following the guidance of these mana flows, Ian quickly discovered the pack leader standing behind him. "Found you. So that's where you were, huh?" Ian thought to himself. He then quickly turned towards Meave and yelled, "Knight, Lauren, you stay here and guard the horses. I'm going to take their leader's head." After saying that, Ian rushed towards the forest, leaving Lauren staring in astonishment. What? What did he just say? What did he? "Get back here," she shouted frantically towards Ian. At that moment, he was using some kind of skill that allowed him to step on the air itself. Thanks to that, he easily vaulted over the wolf pack in front of him. This sight was also witnessed by Lauren. Did he just jump in midair? Or am I hallucinating? Lauren mumbled. But before she could think any further, Philip's cry for help rang out. "Master, I'm gonna die. Help me." Good grief. His situation was indeed quite dangerous, as the maws of several wolves were about to snap down on him. So Lauren had no choice but to haul ass and rush in to save him. At the same time, the wolf leader began to chase after Ian. And so they went one chasing and one running until Ian had gone far enough. He stopped, turned around and said, "You still have your wild animal instincts, huh? Chasing after fleeing prey." On the other side, the wolf leader began to stare at its prey with eyes full of killing intent. Then, its mouth began to pant with excitement, ready to hunt its prey. And just to be safe, it also called a few underling wolves to act as cannon fodder. The appearance of the smaller wolves made Ian complain. "Geez, this wild wolf sure has a lot of friends." But just then, a quest notification suddenly appeared next to Ian. Side quest. Cursed Andolph. Defeat the cursed werewolf Andolph. The sudden appearance of a side quest filled Ian with excitement. "Hell yeah, nice to meet you, you damn mutt. Now it's your turn to be my prey." As he spoke, he began to draw his sword, preparing for a dogfight. It seems this elite wolf was smart enough to understand Ian's provocation, because it immediately ordered its underlings to charge and attack. But facing these attacks, Ian only needed to unleash Gale of a Million Swords to slice them all in two. Now the wolf leader had no minions left to command. Ian then let out another taunt. "You look even uglier than you do in the game, Andolph." These words made the beast on the other side start grinding its teeth in anger. Seeing this, Ian began to smirk. "What's wrong? Scared now that you're all alone?" Hearing this, the beast immediately leaped forward to attack him. First, it began to focus mana into its left arm, then swung it forward forcefully. Immediately, several mana blades began to fly towards Ian. But Ian reacted quickly with the low-level gray magic spell Windshield. However, it seemed this magic wasn't strong enough to stop the mana blades. Ian realized this instantly. If that's not enough, then try this. As he spoke, he began to cast another spell. It was the low-level Azun spell Ice Shield. As soon as this magic was complete, it created a shield that blocked the space in front of him. Thanks to this shield's defensive power, the wolf leader's attack was finally stopped. Now, having blocked the attack, Ian began to smirk at the wolf before him. Immediately after, his ice shield began to glow, then fired countless ice bullets at the wolf. And the power of these bullets was nothing to scoff at. Every time an ice bullet hit the pack leader's body, it drew blood. The helpless wolf could only use its two hands to shield its vital spots and wait for the bullet storm to end. By the time it was over, the pack leader's body was covered in fresh blood. Seeing this, Ian started to laugh and said, "How do you like that? Want to go for another round?" Hearing this, the pack leader's eyes flashed with anger. It then stomped its foot hard on the ground and shot towards Ian like a cannonball, once again focusing its mana into the palms of its hands and lunged straight for him. Unfortunately, its attack hit nothing but air because by then, Ian had already circled behind it ages ago. Then he quickly swung his sword, slashing the wolf's arm. The deep, long wound made the pack leader scream in agony as it turned towards Ian. Even though he had landed a hit on the wolf, he was still astonished that even the Wind God's sword couldn't cut clean through. Meanwhile, the monster began to suppress the pain and prepared to attack Ian while his sword was stuck. Ian saw this, so he began to channel more wind energy into his sword. Then he put all his strength into it, forcing the sword in his hand to slice right off the wolf's right arm. Losing an arm made the wolf let out an earth-shattering scream. But before it could let out another cry, Ian began to use the low-level gray magic spell, Vacuum Blast. He swung his sword straight at the monster's remaining left arm. The moment the sword made contact, an explosion occurred. And just like that, the wolf's other arm also said goodbye to its owner. This wolf truly deserved the title of King of Tenacity. Despite losing both arms, it still refused to just die like that. So it made one final gamble, mustering all the remaining strength in its body and charging straight at Ian. The powerful headbutt forced Ian to hurriedly use his ice shield to block. But even so, he was still pushed back, and taking this chance, the wolf leaped right over his head and immediately bolted, but there was no way Ian would let it get away that easily. While it was still leaping through the air, Ian from below activated his ice shield, firing a storm of ice bullets upwards. When this wolf had 2 arms, it couldn't block them. Now, with only 2 legs, it stood even less of a chance. As a result, its body was torn apart by bullets once more before it crashed to the ground. And just as it managed to get back up, countless more ice bullets flew straight at it, freezing the wolf in an instant. It was Ian's low-level Azun spell Ice Prison. Seeing the wolf trapped, he could finally let out a sigh of relief. Thought I'd lost you there. Seriously? Why won't you just die, you damn stray? Why do you insist on wasting my time and energy, huh? As he said this, he began to gather mana in his palm and fired a stream of energy straight at the wolf in front of him. After being hit, the wolf flew backwards and slammed into the ice wall, shattering it. And after escaping the ice prison, the wolf was relieved as hell. This was its chance to escape. Thinking this, it turned to run, but Ian's voice rang out again. Where do you think you're going, huh? Trying to find backup. Not while I'm here, you won't. As he spoke, Ian swooped down on it from the air. At the same time, he had already prepared some kind of magic in his hand whose name I don't know. After speaking, he unleashed this magic cannon blast down onto the wolf below. After being hit by this attack, the pack leader's mouth hung open, its life status unclear. And just to be sure, Ian started using the vacuum blast magic. He shoved this attack straight into its stomach. A powerful close-range attack like this was excruciatingly painful. It was strong enough to send a shockwave out from behind the wolf. After taking the hit, Mr. Wolf here started spewing mouthfuls of blood before collapsing as if dead. As for Ian, after continuously unleashing spells like that, he started panting heavily. Damn it, this time it's gotta be dead for sure, right? Phew, it's finally over. Ian let out a long sigh as he looked at the scattered corpses of the wolves. But just then, the pack leader's body suddenly started to move, startling Ian. No way! It's still alive! Oh crap, I'm out of mana. And just as he was about to think of bailing, the werewolf's face in front of him began to change, slowly, shifting back into a human face. This person seemed to be regaining consciousness. Then he looked at Ian with eyes full of gratitude. Thank you! Ian, for his part, was quick to seize the opportunity. This was quite a surprise. If you're so grateful to me, then give me some information. Or an item would be fine, too. Just don't thank me with empty words. Over on the werewolf's side, after hearing that he managed to force out a few words. The deer. He got out a few words that made no sense. This really left Ian completely clueless. The deer. Which deer? Ian asked. But unfortunately, the werewolf was already dead, so there was no one to answer. Seeing him just drop dead like that, Ian grumbled. Damn it, does that mean you ate a deer or something? Were you trying to brag that you had meat to eat, or what? The scene changes to Lauren and Philip's location. The two of them had also finished off the lesser wolves, and were now waiting for Ian to return. Just then, they heard the sound of footsteps. Lauren quickly turned and asked, Ian. Yeah, it's me. Good to see you're still alive, Ian said. At that moment, he was holding the werewolf's head in his hand. When Philip saw this, he was so frightened that he fell to the ground. Oh my God, what is that thing? Ian then held up the werewolf's head and explained, It's a werewolf. This is the one that led the wolves to attack us. After hearing Ian's words, Lauren was stunned. Did he really take them down all by himself? Ian, maybe he really can find the warlock, but even so, for him to fight a werewolf on his own, that was still incredibly dangerous. Thinking this, she spoke up. Why did you fight it alone? You could have died. Have you already forgotten your promise? But Ian quickly turned and said, But it might have gotten away if I had waited for you all to get there. How could you be so sure? Was it just a guess? Lauren asked. Ian sighed and looked around. Look at the wolves around here. They could have been easily handled by you and Philip, but really it was just you. But instead of attacking directly, they just tried to wear us down. That means they had a leader who could think. This guy was behind it all, pulling the strings. Why do you think he was able to do that? He wasn't very strong. He only fought because he saw I was alone. Otherwise, he would have been long gone. I know you two were worried about me. Believe me, I'm worried about my own worthless life, too. I'm not so noble that I'd sacrifice my life for someone. I'm not a knight like you. I'm just an ordinary mercenary. Ian's sharp words left Lauren speechless. I can't argue with that at all. Thinking this, she let out a sigh and said, "All right. But from now on, I want you to tell me your plan beforehand, and don't try to do anything alone anymore." Hearing this, Ian calmly replied, "Okay, but let's get out of here. This place is a mess." He then turned to Philip and said, "Philip, go get the horses." Watching Philip's back as he hurried away, to get the horses, Ian started thinking things over. The situation is stable enough for now, and I got something from killing them. Returning to the moment when, just as Ian finished off the werewolf, a notification popped up congratulating him on completing the quest. An extra point in vitality, huh? Not bad. I was planning to put all my points into intelligence and spirit since this character is a bit weak, but here's a free vitality point. Then a line of text on the notification board caught his attention. Cursed vitality. Condensed curse essence. Wait a minute. What is this? What the hell is a condensed curse essence? And while he was still wondering what on earth this thing was, a crystal began to fall from the werewolf's mouth. After seeing the crystal drop, Ian picked it up and observed it. So this guy had an essence too. I've never seen this in the game before. Then the system provided a description of the item. Condensed cursed essence. Usable. After use, the user will be tempted by the curse of madness. The description gave Ian the creeps. I can use it right away. But that side effect is insane. Still, I'll hang on to it. Who knows, it might be useful in the future. With that thought, Ian tucked it into his dimensional pouch. Back in the present, Philip had started bringing the horses over, but he was having a bit of trouble with one of them. Because as soon as it got near Ian, no matter how hard he pulled, it still won't move forward. What's wrong with this horse? Come on now, Philip said worriedly as he was still trying to lead the horse. Shifting to the horse's point of view, the man named Ian in front of it suddenly radiated an incredibly terrifying aura, causing it to start convulsing. Then it began to foam at the mouth. It foamed at the mouth and then collapsed to the ground. Seeing this, Philip quickly used his hands to check on it. His face grew worried as he said, "My God, it's dead. What in the world just happened?" At that moment, Ian, standing to the side, looked at the blood on himself and thought, "Is it because of the blood on my body?" Back to Philip because the horse was now dead. He had no choice but to sadly turn and say to the other two, "I thought I took such good care of it. I'm sorry." Lauren grumbled a bit. "You need to be more careful." "Philip." Then she turned to Ian and said, "I'm sorry about this. I'll compensate you." Hearing this, Ian quickly waved his hand. "It's all right. It was just an accident. But I'm quite tired right now." As he spoke, he looked at Philip with a sly, meaningful smile. This smile made Philip break out in a cold sweat. "Sir?" And soon enough, he understood what that smile meant. "We're here. This stream is the heart of the forest. We finally made it." Philip said, his face dripping with sweat. His whole body trembled with each step for the simple reason that he had to give his horse to Ian. While he had to walk, Ian was leisurely riding on the horse's back. He even felt that Philip's horse was even better than his own, and it seemed that seeing how hard Philip had struggled to get here, he began to feel a little pity and threw his lunchbox to him. "Is this for real?" Philip said joyfully. Meanwhile, Ian gave him detailed instructions. "Take half and prepare it properly. Wash your hands thoroughly. After you're done cooking, clean my armor. Got it?" "Yes, sir," Philip said cheerfully. Immediately after, he started whistling and ran off to prepare everything. The fact that he was so happy just from being given a little food made Ian find it amusing. This kid's so easy to handle. As he spoke, he began to take off his armor. Seeing this from behind, Lauren asked curiously, "Ian, what are you doing?" "Taking it off to wash this piece of junk, what else?" Ian said. After hearing this, Lauren thought for a moment, then she too slowly began to take off her armor. This made Ian extremely surprised. "What are you doing?" "I'm washing my clothes too, of course." "Let's do it together." This suggestion left Ian's face frozen in confusion, but what was meant to happen happened. Right now, the two of them started bathing together in the stream, and our man Ian still couldn't comprehend the situation. Is this normal in this world? I thought I had gotten used to this world already. On top of that, the two of them weren't even that far apart. And while Ian was still wondering about the customs of the people in this game, the woman in front of him, Lauren began to speak up. "Ian, are you injured?" Ian couldn't believe this question. Is she only just noticing now? Of course, despite the silent complaint in his heart, he still answered, "I'm fine." Hearing that Lauren began to praise him, "That's amazing. You fought a werewolf and came back without a scratch. The way you fight is so different. It's even more effective than a knight like me. Seeing how you treat Philip and the knowledge you have, you're so different from other mercenaries." Hearing this, Ian calmly replied, "It's probably just because you're not used to this kind of life. You're a noble after all. I, on the other hand, came from the streets." "I see. You must have trained incredibly hard, just like me. I chose to become an apostle of Tyren and a sword in service to the kingdom instead of being the lady of House Lauren." Her words gave Ian a lot to think about. An apostle, huh? When someone becomes an apostle of a god, they are blessed with a portion of that god's power. It sounds divine, but it has its limits and there's a price to pay for that power. Thinking about this, Ian suddenly grew curious and asked, "What kind of god is Tyren?" But this question startled Lauren, who was in front of him. "Are you being serious, model?" Hearing that, Ian quickly said, "I'm not very knowledgeable about the gods. Ultimately, it's because Aquilonia has a whole pile of gods, and since Ian is just a mercenary who has the time to go around, memorizing all their names meanwhile, Lauren began to explain the god she worships. A simple mind would find it difficult to serve him. Tyran is a god of justice, the bastard son of the god Rosola. He is the sword of judgment, and I am an apostle. I cannot lie or take any sin lightly. If I do wrong, I will lose his blessing. Hearing this, Ian wondered, Justice, is that his title? His other name must be cooler, right? As he said this, Ian had a few thoughts. The main motifs of Aquilonia are betrayal and decay after all. That's why every god has another name besides their known one, and that could be their weakness. Just like the other name of Sola, the god of light, is destiny. Back to the conversation. Lauren thought about Ian's question for a moment, then said, Tyran's nickname you ask. I believe he does have one. Vengeance. Seeking revenge by committing sinful acts is one way someone might get retribution. Sometimes that itself is the goal of vengeance. The other name for justice is vengeance. That's why righteous revenge is blessed by Tyran. And Lauren's words made everything click for Ian. I get it. So this is the secrets of the Bloody Avengers. Lauren's fall wasn't without reason. She went from being an apostle of justice to an apostle of vengeance. She just told me the flip side of being an apostle of Tyran. She said she'd lose her blessing if she lied or took sin lightly. So these apostles lose their blessings if they go against their God's will. Is that their limitation? Then why did she become an avenger for her family? Or because she hates someone? In that case, I might be able to stop her from becoming the Bloody Avenger. But as soon as he had that thought, Ian began to ponder the variables in the storyline. No, she has to become the Bloody Avenger because she's the boss of the first stage. Damn it, I still don't have enough information. Thinking this, Ian started to grit his teeth, trying to calm his mind. Patience, Ian mumbled. And while Ian was still lost in his tangled thoughts, Lauren, on the other hand, asked Ian, It seems you don't serve any particular god? That's right, and I'd like to keep it that way, Ian said. I'm sure you have your reasons, but I believe there's still a god watching over you, and has perhaps chosen you. You know, maybe blah blah blah? In short, after she finished speaking, Ian raised a middle finger to the sky as if to challenge the gods above. And after raising his friendly finger, he said, I'm hungry, let's go eat. And just like that, a night passed. The next morning, they continued their journey, and during this time, Philip just couldn't shut his mouth. You faced a werewolf single-handedly. Just thinking about it gives me goosebumps, Sir Ian. Ian was now starting to feel a real headache coming on. This guy hadn't stopped talking since last night. Thinking this, Ian sighed and said, It's no big deal. You can find monsters like that anywhere. But Philip, after hearing this, immediately said, But we haven't seen that many on this entire journey. We haven't run into anything like that at all. His words startled Ian, who quickly turned back to ask, You haven't run into any? I've met hundreds of them since leaving the swamp and arriving in the Azela Kingdom. So why haven't they encountered a single one meanwhile? Lauren also spoke up. He's right. We only fought a few goblins and kobolds on our way here. Hearing this, Ian quickly asked again, Wait a minute. Which path did you take? At the same time, a few thoughts popped into his head. The city I reached right after leaving the swamp was Ban in the Azela Kingdom. I started playing the part of a mercenary from there. I handled the city's problems as a mercenary and traveled along the road connecting to the kingdom, the Royal Road, and I killed a ton of monsters along the way. As he thought of this, he understood everything. I'm the one who cleared the path for you guys. Philip, hearing this, asked confusedly, What was that, sir? At this, Ian slowly explained, I mean your peaceful days are over. Philip, this kingdom is more desolate than you think. And not long after that, they arrived at a ruined village, the sight of it surprised even someone as experienced as Ian. I can't believe it fell this soon. Philip could only pray to the heavens. Seeing this, holy Rosola. Do you think this is the work of the rebels? This isn't the countryside, but it's still near the Royal Road, isn't it? How could those bastards run rampant like this? And as Philip said this, Lauren up ahead began to growl, her voice filled with anger. Unforgivable! They were just civilians. How could they have the heart? And her attitude made Ian beside her sigh. She can get angry about anything. A truly noble knight. Maybe that's why she can't find the Dark Mage. She's probably wasting her time on things like this. But if that's the case, then there's a chance the system will issue some kind of quest. Just as he was thinking this, Ian suddenly spotted a group of people up ahead. The sight made him start to smile. Looks like we'll find out who's behind this soon enough. His words made Lauren next to him ask with confusion, What do you mean, Ian? Hearing this, he glanced toward the people in the distance. Then he said, We'll go and ask them. Ian's words also drew Lauren's attention to the group. The air around her began to change. I hope this group isn't the one that burned down this village. If they are, then the only way they'll be going home from now on is in a coffin. The scene shifts to the group in the distance. At that moment, they were trying to dig a hole to bury the dead. And the leader, seeing his men working so slowly, started nagging, Hurry up! It's only 6 graves. What's taking so long? Stop dragging your feet. I had a nightmare last night. And just after he said this, the sound of horse hooves echoed from behind them, causing him to whip around. At that moment, Lauren was charging straight at them on horseback, her sword filled with mana. The oppressive aura she exuded was terrifying. Seeing a knight charging furiously toward them like this, the whole group knew for sure she wasn't coming to ask for directions. They all went pale. What the hell is this? Is that a knight? But why all of a sudden? But before his men could wonder any further, their leader hastily gave an order, Aim for the horse fire when I give the command a real knight. Won't spare our lives. Thinking this, the men quickly drew their crossbows. Lauren up ahead saw this. So she roared, "Drop your weapons and kneel now!" The leader heard this and quickly said, "Why, give us a reason to—" But he hadn't even finished, and his sentence when the man next to him, perhaps out of sheer anxiety, accidentally fired his crossbow. An arrow shot straight forward. This sight made the leader break out in a cold sweat. This good-for-nothing idiot is only good at messing things up. Him firing an arrow like that could get us all killed. Thinking this, the leader couldn't help but shout, "You idiot! I never told you to shoot!" Back with Lauren, as soon as she saw the arrow flying toward her, she simply swung her sword and sliced it in two. This sight made the thugs even more terrified. She's a monster. And right after they said this, from the other side, Lauren began to channel mana into her sword and threw it straight ahead. The mana-filled sword flew like lightning, sending one of them straight to the afterlife. Looking at the sight of his man's body split in two, this leader didn't even shed a single tear. In fact, at that moment, he was cursing at the corpse. What a damn fool, Holy Rusola. Now what are we supposed to do? How do we escape this monster now? And just as he thought this, Lauren had already ridden up right in front of the group, the leader and his two remaining men, and seeing this hurriedly knelt down and said, "Let us explain. We haven't done anything wrong. Please just let us explain a little." After listening, Lauren spoke. "You can explain to me later. For now, answer to this person first." As she said this, Ian also rode up from a distance. And after seeing Ian's appearance, the leader asked in shock, "Wait a minute, you're Ian Hop, aren't you?" It seems this leader knew Ian a little. If so, his worthless life and those of his two underlings were safe. However, faced with the man's question, Ian became pensive, not yet remembering who he was. The leader saw this and quickly explained, "It's me, Mizu, the mercenary hunter you and I met in the city of Bankma, remember?" At the same time, in his heart, he was giving thanks. Thank my ancestors. Thank goodness. The first city I went to after leaving the swamp. Bankma. He's the guy I met at the tavern. At this moment, Lauren also turned to ask Ian, "You really know him?" "Yes, I've met him once," Ian said. And his words made Mizu breathe a sigh of relief. "Thank heavens, you still remember me." "That's great. I'll answer everything. You can check if I'm telling the truth or not." This enthusiastic cooperation was making Ian a little suspicious. I was planning to pull out his nails one by one, if he tried to act like we were old pals, but he beat me to it. With that, Ian decided to get straight to the point. "All right, then. Let's begin with the questions. First, why did the village end up like this?" Hearing this, Mizu began to speak. "It happened when I came to the village." He then recalled the events of that day. Suddenly, a group of soldiers showed up and started burning the village. Some old man, seeing this quickly, grabbed a soldier's arm and asked, "What are you doing? Why would the Lord order this?" But just then, the knight captain on the other side overheard his question and answered, "This is an order from the Lord. He has commanded that the people of this village must all relocate to the city of Ondel. Everyone move out." Hearing him say that, Lauren was startled. "Wait, the Lord? You mean Mark Whisperer?" The moment he heard her words, Philip, who was beside her, gasped, "No way. Why would the Lord order an entire village to be burned down?" Lauren sighed. "It's probably because of the war, Philip. The people of Angela have been preparing for battle everywhere." Her words made Ian start to think. It means this kingdom is gathering all its people and resources in key locations to prepare for war with the neighboring kingdom. Realizing this, Ian spoke. "When war breaks out, they can't defend all their territory. The enemy would just loot and burn it all anyway, so they might as well do it themselves. The Marcus family must have a reason for this. But I didn't expect him to prepare this early." With that thought, Ian spoke up. "Next question. What are you all doing with those bodies? And who are they?" Hearing this, Mizu began to answer, "That's the village chief's family. They resisted and were executed. The villagers gave us a little money and asked us to bury them. So we're digging graves for these people. Is that the truth?" Ian asked with suspicion. "Yes." After Mizu's words, they fell silent, but Ian kept staring at him, his eyes filled with suspicion. Finally, Mizu couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "That's all there is to it. I swear I haven't told a single lie." This statement filled Ian with disappointment. Damn it. All that effort for nothing. The quest notification system didn't even appear. It seems he's telling the truth. Beside him, Lauren turned to Ian and asked, "Ian, do you believe him?" "Yeah," Ian replied dejectedly. "I get it. I'm going back to the village to look for the missing people." After saying that, Lauren turned and left. Watching her go, Ian remarked to himself, "She's so cautious." Meanwhile, Mizu, having seen Lauren leave, turned to Ian and asked, Sir Ian, can we get back to what we were doing?" "Is it all right? Go ahead," Ian said nonchalantly. His reply made Mizu ecstatic. "Thank you, we'll finish up quickly and get back to our main mission." Then he hurriedly turned. He yelled at his men, "What are you all staring at? Get a move on!" At that moment, Philip became curious. What's this main mission he mentioned? It must be a pretty big job if it requires this many people. Hearing this, Mizu stammered at a loss for words. That's a little hard to explain." "Why?" Philip asked. But before the men could answer, Ian, who was standing beside them, spoke up. "There are scumbags worse than those who steal credit for another hunter's quest. I imagine you know about that, right, Mizu? The reason you're not talking is because you probably think I'm the same kind of trash." Ian spoke with a voice full of killing intent, making Mizu break out in a cold sweat. "That's not it at all. You might have heard the stories. There's a pack of wolves that only eats human flesh. I heard they're in the forest near where you came from. They've eaten a lot of people, including the son of the man who hired us. So you need to be careful. A lot of the locals have already lost their lives to them. But he stopped mid-sentence because the two people in front of him were looking at each other with very strange expressions. This made Mizu wonder, so he asked, "What's wrong?" At that, Ian bent down, pulled out the werewolf's head, and said, "I didn't mean to steal your quest, but I think I may have already completed it." As he spoke, he held up the werewolf head for Mizu to see as proof. Seeing it, Mizu's jaw dropped in astonishment. The mission they'd just gotten was already completed by someone else before they could even get started. Meanwhile, Philip's eyes started to sparkle as he said to Ian, "Can I hold the head? Huh, Ian?" "I suppose we'll have to split the reward then," Ian said, turning towards Mizu. Once he recovered from his shock at the werewolf head, he quickly said, "I never heard anything about a werewolf being with that pack. It was hiding behind the wolves, commanding them and using them for the hard stuff. Basically, it acted just like a person. How on earth did you manage to take it down?" But in response to his question, Ian just smiled and said, "Well then, about that mission. Which village did you accept it from?" The scene changes to nightfall. Lauren returned from her patrol, and as soon as she got back, Ian and Philip made a proposal that shocked her. "The village on the way to the Red Valley. You want to bring these guys with us?" "That's right. They could at least be useful. Besides, we need to inform the victims' families about what happened to the wolf pack. We also need to restock on supplies, just like gearing up before leaving the deadly forest." After hearing what Ian said, Lauren paused to think for a moment, then spoke up. "All right, fine, all right, but I'm a bit uncomfortable. You're an exception, Ian, but most mercenaries don't believe in gods or any other faith. That's why I don't trust them." Hearing this, a flustered Mizu who was standing nearby turned and said, "You can count on me, sir. I'm really looking forward to working for you." After that, the men continued their digging. At the same time, Ian began to use his clairvoyant skill searching for energy. The reason he was using this skill was because it was the time when monstrous creatures become active, so they couldn't let their guard down. As soon as the skill activated, both of his eyes glowed with a blue light. Next, Ian turned to look at Lauren. At that moment, her entire body was enveloped in a layer of purple energy. The way Ian was staring at her made Lauren take notice. "What is it, Ian?" Hearing her, Ian immediately said, "It seems you still haven't sensed the dark magic nearby, huh?" After hearing this, Lauren still didn't quite understand. "What do you mean?" But right after that, she suddenly sensed something and hurriedly reached for the pouch at her hip. Then she took out a crystal from inside. The purple energy that Ian had sensed was also being emitted from it. After taking out the crystal, Lauren began to focus her attention on the stone. But she shook her head and said, "I don't see any change. It seems it's too small for you to sense the nearby dark magic. The energy fluctuations are weak but stable. I think this is a sign for summoning a demonic beast." And right after he said those words, both of them sensed a presence appear. They quickly turned to look behind them. "Speak of the devil, and he appears," Ian mumbled. Beside him, Lauren's expression turned serious. "How interesting." At that moment, in front of them was a dark figure on horseback, but the strange thing was it had no head. Philip, witnessing this strange creature, yelled out, "That knight has no head! What in the world is it?" After hearing this, Ian began to voice his speculation. "It seems to be one of the Dark Mage's subordinates that we're tracking. You've never heard of him before. The rumor is quite widespread. The Headless Horseman, the one who brings chaos to the kingdom. A Dullahan." These words from Ian made Philip break out in a cold sweat. "We just met a werewolf, and now it's another monster. You're right, this kingdom really is a chaotic mess." Turning back to Ian, he was also starting to feel weary. "I really didn't want to have to face an elite monster in a place like this. But that bastard Dark Mage, he really cares about the seeds he's sown. In any case, he sent his subordinate here. This just saves me the trouble of hunting him down." Thinking this, he turned and said to Philip, "Philip, lend me your sword." "Here you go, sir," Philip said as he drew his sword and handed it to Ian. Over here, Lauren, seeing that Ian intended to fight, also stepped forward and spoke. "I'll take the front line for Ian, but I think we should observe the situation first. It seems like the Dullahan is waiting for us to attack first. Therefore, we should take some time to plan and calculate its actions," Ian said, while at the same time he began to consider the Dullahan's probable reactions. The Dullahan's reaction will be based on its opponents. If the opponent attacks, it will enter a defensive state. If not, it will enter an offensive state. Its defensive state is very dangerous, while its offensive moves are rather simple. Therefore, the strategy to fight a Dullahan is to let it attack first, and use that chance to counterattack. But even if its attacks are simple, that doesn't mean they're easy to handle. And while the three of them were still pondering their strategy from behind them, that idiot Mizu started shouting, "It's finally over, we can go now!" But right after he said that, he fell silent because the three people in front started staring at him like he was an idiot. "What, is there a problem?" Mizu asked. But by then Mizu's shouting had already provoked the Dullahan up ahead. Immediately, a red aura began pouring out of its body, causing everyone to clutch their heads in pain. Seeing this, Ian started to grumble. "Nothing was happening before, now I get it. Thanks to you, it's gone berserk and is taking action." At that moment, across from them, the Dullahan began to gather the red energy into its right palm. Lauren saw this and immediately grew cautious. At the same time, she turned and asked Ian, "What's that? Is it a spell?" After listening, Ian began to explain. "It's a type of ancient language. It's saying it cannot forgive humans for daring to set foot on its land." Over here, Philip, despite his headache after hearing that, still had to ask, "You understand what it's saying, sir?" "I'm not completely sure myself," Ian said calmly. The reason Ian could understand the Dullahan's words was because he possessed the skill Ancient Language Arcane Technique Level 2. It was a skill that Ian had upgraded by mistake earlier. The skill required Level 2 to be able to translate multiple languages. This is a specialized class skill that can be used in ancient-themed events. To be honest, he didn't give a damn if Dunlahan was the ghost of this swamp or whatever, but today, it was the opponent he needed to defeat. Meanwhile, it looked like Lahan was also finishing the final stage of his spell. Hearing it, Ian was startled and quickly turned around, shouting to everyone, "Cover your ears, now it's not just an ancient language. It's also a spell if a human without magic resistance hears it." "Damn it," Ian growled. And just as he said, the two henchmen who didn't cover their ears in time lost consciousness. Seeing this, Mizu could only curse, "You idiots, didn't you hear him tell you to cover your ears?" But before he could yell a few more words, digging sounds started coming from behind the two henchmen. Moments later, hands and bodies began to crawl up from the ground. Then countless corpses emerged and slowly approached the group. Seeing this, Mizu and Philip were scared to death. "Zombies!" they screamed at the same time. And as for the two henchmen, they had become a tasty meal for them. Just like that, those two were devoured by the horde of zombies. After seeing this, Mizu also quickly grabbed his shovel to fight them off. "No die, you damn ghouls!" Seeing this, Philip quickly turned to Lauren and asked, "What do we do, ma'am?" Upon hearing him, Lauren drew her sword and said, "I will take the front line and wait for it as I said. Philip, you are to support him." Philip was about to refuse after hearing that, but Lauren had already spurred her horse forward, so he had no choice but to place all his hope in Ian. "I hope you can destroy him before I die, sir." Hearing this, Ian just chuckled and said, "You should worry about those newly awakened zombies. As for me, I have a few things I need to check here. I finally have a chance to see her skills." Back with Lauren, she was riding like a maniac towards Dunlahan. Dunlahan saw this as well, so it began to control the horse beneath it, making it stomp its hooves hard on the ground. Immediately after this stomp, magical spikes shot towards Lauren, but facing this attack, Lauren just needed to gather mana into her sword to easily slice them apart. Then she swiftly charged straight towards Dunlahan's position, and unleashed a powerful thrust that pierced through its body. Ian, seeing the monster that was supposed to be powerful nearly finished in a single blow, could only smile sheepishly. "Look at that. Just as I expected. I really should have chosen the night class. Well, I'll let her fight on her own for now. However, Lauren can only win once she understands its movement attributes. And I should probably start warming up a bit just in case." Back with Lauren after a few clashes with the knight, she realized it wasn't so easy to defeat this knight. "There are strange lights emitting from it when I clash with him. He's hiding something." Just as she had that thought, the fragments of Dunlahan's body began to gather together, restoring it as if it had never been injured. This made her break out in a cold sweat. "Impossible! His wound has completely regenerated." Just then, across from her, Dunlahan began to mutter another spell. As soon as the spell was complete, the more black magical spikes shot towards Lauren. Seeing this, Lauren gritted her teeth and swung her sword once more to cut them all down. But then something unexpected happened. The remnants of the magic spikes began to converge, forming a whip spear that shot straight towards her. This surprise attack forced Lauren to quickly raise her sword to block, and the whip gave her some trouble. "This whip, it's made of pieced-together bone fragments. It's too flexible and difficult to parry." From a distance, Dunlahan continuously swung the whip in its hand, attacking her from all directions. But Lauren couldn't fend it off for long. The whip wrapped around behind her and coiled tightly around her left arm. As soon as she was bound by the whip, her face contorted in pain. "The toxic dark energy is piercing through my holy armor. Crap. At this rate of corrosion, my arm will..." And while Lauren was anxiously wondering how to escape from this whip, a sword slash suddenly struck, shattering it instantly. And the one who appeared was, of course, Ian. He began to speak. "Sorry I had to deal with those zombies first. Now I've figured out its attack attributes. It's time to finish this thing once and for all. Let's fight! Once again, use your full power. The power to blow it away." And right after he said this, in front of them, Dunlahan swung its whip to attack again. Ian and Lauren saw this, and hastily maneuvered their horses to dodge. Then for some reason... But the Dullahan kept focusing its attacks on Ian and taking this opportunity. Lauren had time to prepare for her next attack. "I don't know much about it, but I'll follow your lead, Ian. I want to kill this headless bastard with the tip of my sword of vengeance." Thinking this, she began to focus all her energy enveloping her entire body. Looking back at Ian, he was still struggling to dodge the powerful whip strikes from the Dullahan. This relentless assault made Ian grit his teeth. He was almost done for. Just then, the Dullahan closed in on him, but even so, Ian wasn't worried at all. He even started to smile. "Catch me! Sorry, but now it's my turn to counterattack." Just as he said that, the sound of Lauren's horse's hooves echoed from behind the Dullahan. Hearing it, the Dullahan was startled and quickly turned around. But it was too late. Lauren had already unleashed an incredibly powerful thrust, piercing through its body once again. But even though she landed a hit, Lauren had a strange feeling. It's that light again. When I hit it, it just starts to regenerate. Are we going to fail again? Thinking this, she started to scream at Ian. Ian, this bastard is regenerating again, it's wounds. But before she could finish, Ian said, I know. Right after saying that, he swung a slash towards the Dullahan. But strangely, he was just cutting through the air. The sight left Lauren stunned. What the hell? Why is he slashing at empty space? But then, Lauren was startled to realize that other pieces of the cloak were disappearing. Immediately after the remaining fragments of the cloak hurriedly gathered together. They formed a whip and pierced through the leg of the horse that Ian was riding. Looking at the horse, screaming in agony, Ian said a few words of farewell. You worked hard. Thanks. After saying this, he leaped off the horse's back and rushed towards the remaining pieces of armor. Then, without hesitation, he swung his sword and shattered those 2 armor fragments. This left Lauren a bit astonished. Oh my god, he shattered the armor too. And with the last 2 pieces of armor shattered, the creature could no longer regenerate. Finally, the black smoke on its body began to slowly dissipate, revealing a skull. A grayish skull. Seeing this, Lauren exclaimed in shock, A skull, is that its true form? And over here, Ian, as soon as he saw the skull appear, his face filled with killing intent. He fiercely swung the sword in his hand, bringing it straight down on the skull. And the moment the sword collided with the skull, its 2 eye sockets emitted an intense light. Immediately after, Lauren, who was behind him, felt her entire body become paralyzed. That move, it paralyzed me. It can penetrate holy power and immobilize you. Damn it, did Ian get hit by it too? As she spoke, she looked towards Ian. Back with Ian, he too was beginning to struggle, looking at the glowing red skull floating in midair. Ian began to curse inwardly. This damn Dullahan. It's trying to return to its original form. This is bad. I have to move before it recovers. Thinking this, Ian somehow found the strength, and one of his hands was able to move. He shot it straight towards the skull. The skull, seeing that Ian could move again, was incredibly surprised. It started to bark out some sounds, in a language no one could understand. After hearing its voice, Ian smirked and said, A werewolf monster like Andolph? At the very least, it had one. A secret technique to escape a critical situation like this. So I knew you'd have the move like that too, you bastard. As Ian spoke, he looked at the skull with a dangerous smile. And to explain this, it was all due to Ian's character attributes: endurance magic, resistance, intelligence magic, and willpower. Ian's character was developed with many active and passive skills, a mix of them, and some were even chosen incorrectly. From those countless traits, they combined to create a beneficial synergistic effect. As a result, instead of being paralyzed, he only felt himself slow down a little. Returning to the story, Ian now began to lecture the skull. In times like these, it would be better if you had an escape skill. You think so too, don't you? With that, he slammed the skull to the ground and slowly enveloped his sword in mana. Well then, shall we get back to what we need to do? Ian spoke in a menacing tone. Seeing this, skull number 3 broke out in a cold sweat, realizing it was in deep trouble. So it immediately tried to flee. Unfortunately, how could something without legs possibly outrun Ian? In an instant, Ian was right behind it and slashed it with his sword. The blow sent it crashing to the ground. He then began to unleash a flurry of strikes, making the very ground around them explode. Just then, Lauren slowly approached on her horse. Meanwhile, she still couldn't understand what was happening. The paralysis is gone. But what the hell is going on? A devious yet simple-minded monster defeated by such a primitive and violent method. Back to the Dullahan. After taking countless hits from Ian, its skull finally began to crack. Seeing that it was on death's door, it hastily shrieked some incomprehensible words as if making a threat. But unfortunately for it, Ian wasn't afraid of a single damn thing. So he raised the sword in his hand and plunged it straight into its skull. The moment the skull was pierced, it unleashed a blinding flash of light. A shockwave followed, causing Lauren, who was standing behind him, to quickly shield her face. When the blast subsided, the skull had split in 2. It was only then that Ian could finally catch his breath. Your simmering hatred or whatever other nonsense is none of my concern. Your life ending here is good enough for me. At that moment, Ian's sword also shattered from the shockwave released by the skull. This just made Ian click his tongue in annoyance. Tch! Another sword destroyed. Another. Cut to the dark sorcerer. After sensing that the headless knight he'd spent so much effort nurturing had been sent on its way by Ian, he started to lose his mind. First it was the kobold chieftain, and now the headless knight of the swamp, that bastard Crimson. My precious seeds, how dare he? At this point, he couldn't hold it in any longer, and began flinging his forbidden books all over the room. It took a few minutes before he managed to regain his composure. He muttered, No. I must see this as an opportunity to get rid of that rabble sooner. Not just the Angeline Kingdom. This entire world will revert to its original form, just as it was in the beginning. And I, a guardian and attendant of that day, will break free from this cycle of humanity. And I will become an absolute existence. And when that time comes, I will devour that bastard alive. He vowed to himself. The scene changes to a certain village. Right now, 2 farmers are sitting and talking. Hey, have you heard? Our cook finally fell ill. The man in the hat across from him didn't seem surprised at all. Well, that was to be expected. His only son was killed by the wolves after all. Moving on from the cook's problem, the man with the hoe asked, Any word from them yet? I mean those mercenaries who were so confident they'd take care of the wolves. I'm not so sure, the hatted man replied. As they were talking, Ian's group began to enter the village. This village, the sudden appearance of a group of strangers moving in, caused everyone to start gathering around. They started chattering excitedly. What's all the commotion, that full-body armor? Is that a knight? Good heavens, what's with that pot swinging on his back? Next, everyone's attention turned to Mizu, who was leading the group. Hey, that man! He's one of the mercenaries who went to kill the wolves. He's holding a severed head. Is that the thing that's been killing all the villagers? Look at that heroic expression. He must be the one who killed it. He actually did it. He's a true hero. These words of praise flooded Mizu's ears. It caused his nostrils to flare as he turned back to Ian's group and said, "See? We got here an hour early. It's all thanks to you having a guide like me. Anyway, Sir Ian, do I need to keep holding this head? It's not that I'm scared, but it's a little weird and kind of heavy. Do you want me to cut off your hand to lighten the load?" Griffin said coldly. "No, I was just kidding," Mizu said hurriedly, immediately turning back to face forward. Seeing how obedient he was, Ian let out a sigh and thought to himself, looks like he's been reborn as a dedicated guide. This also made Ian recall what happened that night. Back then, Mizu was diligently digging graves to bury his friends. Seeing him working tirelessly like an ox, Philip advised, "Hey, Mizu, you should probably stop." Hearing this, Mizu didn't stop his hands. He kept digging and said, "Oh, it's fine, I want to do this. I'm the only one who survived. I don't want my men to come back as ghosts and haunt me." They lived in hardship right up to the very end, Mizu shared sadly, and the tone in his voice made the young man. Philip became quiet for a moment, then turned to Lauren and asked, "What should we do now, Master? We're already far behind schedule." As he spoke, he handed Lauren a skewer of grilled meat. Lauren took the skewer he offered and said, "You're right. After joining Ian's team, we've had to fight every day. We've lost 2 horses, and it's going to cost us a lot of time." Philip added, "It will take a whole week to get to the graveyard forest. At this rate, we won't have enough time to explore other places like this." Just then, Mizu, having finished burying his comrades, happened to overhear their conversation. So he spoke up, asking, "Is your destination the graveyard forest? It won't take a whole week. Actually, if you use a shortcut that only experienced mercenaries know, 5 days will be enough, even if you stop by a village." His words caught Ian's attention. "Can you take responsibility for what you just said?" Ian said calmly. Hearing this, Mizu was startled and replied, "Well, it's a dangerous path, but..." Before he could finish his sentence, Ian cut him off. "Then it's settled. You will lead us to the graveyard forest." Naturally, Ian's words made Mizu jump. What are you talking about?" Mizu cried out in panic. To cure this bout of panic, Ian casually tossed him a gold coin. Mizu hurriedly caught the coin and asked, "I don't even know why you're going to that cursed forest." As he spoke, he began to look at the coin in his hand, and then the glittering light it gave off nearly blinded him. "Wait a minute. What kind of gold coin is this?" Mizu said, startled. Back in the present, Ian looked at Mizu and thought, 1 royal gold coin is worth twice as much as a regular one. I even stole his wolf-slaying quest, so he must be out of money. It'll be hard for him to refuse the offer. I was only planning on accompanying Lauren to the graveyard, but now it's a good idea to have him along to help fight the Dark Mage." And as Ian was thinking this, Mizu had already led them to the front of an inn. He smiled and introduced it. "The food in this inn is pretty good, and the beer is great too. Now let's each take care of our own business, and meet back at this inn later. I'll be back after arranging the wolf quest." When Ian heard him say that, he casually tossed Philip a few silver coins and said, "Philip, go buy some horses at the stables. Buy one for yourself, too." Hearing this, Philip said gleefully, "Thank you, sir, I'll get it done. I'm only lending it to you. Bring me back the change," Ian said coldly. Turning to Lauren, she then spoke up and asked Ian, "Didn't you say you were going to the village of the Rusola Temple? May I come with you? I want to pray too." Hearing this, Ian quickly waved his hand dismissively and said, "No, I think we should go separately. I'm also planning to stop by another place, so it might take a while. Besides, if you're late coming back too, who knows what will happen to those two." After hearing these persuasive words from Ian, Lauren understood that safety should be the priority, so she had no choice but to say, "All right." Then Ian went to the church alone. The reason he had just given Lauren was something he had just made up. It was mainly because faith and honor are very important to a knight like Lauren. In other words, they're perfect fools when faced with a priest. I don't want to lose any more money by bringing her with me, so it was best to refuse. And as Ian was thinking this, he arrived at the church door, opened it, and went inside. At that moment, there was no one inside, and on the cathedral's dais, a statue was kneeling. It had both hands raised as if catching something. And the most special thing was on these hands. Some kind of sparkling dust was continuously falling from them. This surprised Ian a little. "There's a statue here. This isn't magic or natural light. It's a real miracle. This is a meditation temple. I can finally cleanse away all these vile impurities," Ian thought happily, but just then, the golden dust on the statue's hands suddenly began to glow brightly, and at the same time it seemed to multiply in quantity. What's going on with this stuff?" Ian muttered. At that moment, an old man approached him from behind. He began to ask, "Who are you? This isn't the proper time for prayer. Why are you?" But he stopped mid-sentence because he had noticed the strange phenomenon of the statue in front of him, and right after that, his voice full of reverence rang out, "O Lord Rusola, what has brought an apostle of the God of Light to a countryside like this?" Standing beside him, Ian looked bewildered and said, "I'm sorry, what apostle?" The old man next to him then put on the kindest face possible. and said, "That's right. The last time the goddess Rusola blessed us with such a brilliant holy light, it was when the apostle of the Empire visited a very long time ago." Hearing this, Ian started to understand a little. But he still wondered, he's mistaken me for someone else. I haven't done a damn thing. Anyway, this feeling is probably... Thinking this, Ian turned to the old man behind him and said, "Excuse me, but I'm just an ordinary mercenary. I'm not an apostle or a follower of any kind." "You're not?" he asked, puzzled. And in the face of this question, Ian said nothing, instead observing the statue intently and thinking, "I have a bad feeling about this. It feels like someone is watching me through that statue. I can't pretend to be an apostle while it's watching like this. Who knows what kind of punishment I'd receive?" Turning back to the old man, after learning that Ian wasn't a follower, he began to coax him, "Well then, you don't have any plans. And to worship the god of light Rucola from this moment on." Hearing him say that, Ian smirked. How ridiculous. They kept nagging about apostles, and now an actual apostle quest has appeared right in front of me. The 4 apostles of Rucola. An apostle quest from the god of humanity, blessed by Rucola. Become a subordinate and representative, and you will be able to use a portion of the holy power. This is a pretty familiar quest because it also existed in the game in the past, but my level wasn't high enough to do it. But I guess this means the limitations that once existed in the game have all disappeared, which is why I'm receiving this quest. Back to the old man. It seems he could see the hesitation on Ian's face, so he quickly reassured him, "Don't be hasty. I hope you will make the right choice, and if that moment of reverence comes, please remember this, faithful Edward." In response to his words, Ian flashed a sly grin and said, "All right, Edward, I'll remember you. And as such, I need your help right now." "Oh, tell me," Edward said cheerfully. Hearing this, Ian took out several bright purple stones from his inventory and said, "With the holy light of the god of light, can you purify the tainted mana from this item?" After witnessing the stones in Ian's hand, the old man exclaimed in shock, "What tainted mana? It can't be from just an ordinary demonic creature. So can you do it or not? I'm supposed to be leaving by tomorrow afternoon at the latest. But of course, how could I possibly refuse? Although the goddess has granted us more holy light than before today, my physical strength is limited, so I cannot purify many gems like that in a single day. But if you donate enough to maintain this temple, I think I could purify one more gem. Even if this harms my body, I will pray to the gods through the night to purify it." "The old man," Edward said with an incredibly cunning smile. Meanwhile, Ian, hearing him try to pull a scam, turned to stare at the statue for a moment and said, "It seems I'll need a lot of money to worship the god, Rucola." As he said this, Ian's finger was already on the decline button. And at that very moment, the dust of light above the statue's 2 palms went out. The old man, Edward, saw this and cried out in fear, The goddess!" He then quickly turned to Ian and said, "Wait, I won't take any donation money at all." "What?" Ian asked again, puzzled. Faced with his question, the old man bowed his head, admitting his fault, and said, "I have made a mistake. If I can help someone favored by the goddess, then that will be honor enough for me." And as if hearing his words, the golden dust once again appeared in abundance on the statue's 2 palms. But Ian coldly said to him, "Then purify these, Edward. The goddess will surely know of your loyalty." "Yes, sir," Edward said helplessly. And after Ian handed these cursed items over to the old man Edward, he returned to the inn immediately. And when he arrived, it seemed they had already finished a round of drinks. As soon as he saw him, Mizu waved and said, "Oh, just in time, the esteemed hunter has returned." I don't know what on earth that Mizu guy said to Philip while drinking, but he was now gaping and asking, "Did you really hunt the monster in the swamp? I heard that you took it down in a single blow. Please tell us the story, seeing their current state." Ian clicked his tongue and said, "So everyone's gathered here, huh? Where's the change kid?" Ian said as he started to sit at the table. Seeing this, Philip quickly took out some coins and said, "Here you are. Model, this is all the money we have left after buying the horses." Then he looked at Ian with sparkling eyes and asked, "Did you really hunt a dragon?" Whether this dragon hunt was real or not right after that, Ian shot an irritated glare at Mizu, a look so sharp it sobered him up instantly. "But I didn't tell him anything special. He was just curious about your past, so I only told him a tiny little bit." Hearing this, Ian gritted his teeth and set the record straight. It wasn't a dragon, it was just an adult drake. A winged lizard could never compare to a real dragon. But before he could finish, the 2 idiots in front of him slammed their hands on the table and yelled, "You really saw a dragon? For real, boss? You're not kidding, are you?" Seeing them yelling like that, Ian snapped, "Do you want me to cut your tongues out? You're getting on my nerves." But it seemed his words didn't register with the 2 blockheads at all, because they just kept asking, "Why were you in the swamp in the first place?" Hearing this, Mizu chimed in, "Actually, I'm just as curious as he is. Aren't there rumors? And that the place is a cursed land, and that unless you're a descendant of the ancient people, you'll die the moment you set foot in there." Their questions made Ian recall some of the system's explanations. "I think I saw something about me being a descendant of the ancient people." "In the character window? Is that why I wasn't consumed by the shadow barrier and driven mad? Is it some kind of special birthright or something?" Speaking of the shadow barrier, it's a massive unidentified barrier of darkness that splits the continent in half, and it's one of the most discussed issues. In the game, most of the problems that occurred in Aquilonia were usually related to the chaos of the shadow barrier. The same goes for my current target, the Dark Mage. And while Philip and Mizu were eagerly asking questions, it seems their noise had finally angered Lauren. Right after that, she slammed her beer mug down on the table and yelled, "That's enough! You two talk way too much. It looks like you're both drunk. So just go home already." Her shout snapped them both out of it, and they realized their mistake. "Yes, it was my fault." "My apologies, milady," Philip said while Mizu scratched his head and added, "Sorry about that, boss." After that, they both headed for their room, bickering loudly as they went. "This is all your fault." "My fault? Weren't you the one talking your head off?" Ian watched them argue, took a sip of his beer, and thought, "My ears never get a moment's rest." At that moment, Lauren, who was beside him, suddenly spoke up. "Hey, Ian, would you like to go for a walk and talk with me? There are a few things I'd like to talk to you about." And so after that, the two of them went for a walk along the deserted streets. It was Lauren who spoke first. "Ian, are you okay after taking that thing from the Headless Knight?" "You mean the loot?" Ian spoke as he began to recall the memory of the moment just after he had defeated the Headless Horseman. Back then, after splitting the knight's skull in two, Ian had started grumbling, "Damn it! Another sword is broken," Ian said as he started to look at his chipped sword, but suddenly at that moment, from inside the skull, something black suddenly crawled out, and while Ian wasn't paying attention, it shot straight towards him, but luckily with his extremely high state of alert. Ian managed to grip the thing tightly in his palm. "What the hell is this thing?" Ian mumbled, but before he could even finish complaining, it seemed the object had begun to have a strange effect on his body. Then Ian started hearing hissing sounds, and hallucinations appeared in front of him. "Curse humanity! May humans die forever! I curse you to die!" The hallucinations yelled as they began to rush forward, and grip him tightly by the neck. But it seemed this level of hallucination was still a bit amateurish, as Ian even laughed mockingly. "What's with all this madness? Is that all you've got? It can't even compare to the madness I had to endure as a tragic character in that game." As he said this, a burst of energy erupted from his body, pushing all of these negative hallucinations away. After that, he looked at the thing in his palm and thought, "So this was your doing. I'll destroy you with mana. Have a taste of your own medicine." With that said, Ian began to focus mana into his palm and squeezed hard, and just like that, the thing inside his hand stopped. It stopped struggling and went silent instantly. "I wonder if I crushed it. It seems it's finally gone quiet and submitted. That's the feeling being transmitted into my head. What's more, this feeling is like a new part of my body has been created, just like the first time I ever sensed magic." Thinking this, Ian opened his hand, revealing a small snake inside. Its form made him a little pleased, and he said, "A snake. So you're the one who transmitted those feelings to me, so does that make you my pet now?" And as soon as Ian said that, the little snake on his palm slithered and coiled tightly around his middle finger just like a ring. "Ha, another new item. The best spoils from the Headless Horseman. The Swamp's Grudge. Unique class. A ring in the shape of a snake. You can use a curse that disorients your opponent. When the game begins, players with low mental power and intelligence will fall into a state of panic, and renders them unable to act in dangerous situations. Who would have thought its restriction could be lifted by an item like this?" Thinking this, Ian looked at the ring on his hand and said to Lauren beside him, "As you can see, I'm fine." Meanwhile, Lauren, hearing him affirm it so confidently, she exclaimed, "You never cease to amaze me. From defeating the werewolves to the Headless Horseman, it seems even the influence of that night couldn't do anything. To you, but perhaps that's only natural. After all, you've overcome countless life-or-death situations alone in the cursed swamp." Hearing her say that made Ian a bit dizzy. "I was just wondering why you didn't bring that story up again." Turning back to Lauren, she continued, "For someone like me who was stationed at the borderlands, I am truly fortunate to have met someone like you." "Ian, that's what I mean." Over on Ian's side, hearing her words, he was silent for a moment, then asked in confusion, "So what is it you really want to tell me?" At this, Lauren finally got to the main point. "I only learned of the existence of the Dark Mages a few days after receiving the order to return from the border. As I was preparing to leave, a letter arrived. It was a letter from my only younger brother, Vernon. Vernon Lauren. He is the head of the Lauren family and the shield that has protected the royal family for many generations." Hearing this, Ian thought to himself, "I don't remember seeing him in the game." With that in mind, Ian spoke up, "Isn't that a bit strange? An apostle of Tyrann guarding the borders while your younger brother protects the king." Lauren sighed at his question and replied, "If I had stayed in the capital, Vernon, and wouldn't have been able to achieve anything because of my large shadow." Such a noble sacrifice rare in these dark times, Ian thought. Perhaps that nobility is what caught the goddess Tyrann's attention. Returning to Lauren, she continued, "The problem is Vernon knew that as well. That boy has always wanted to prove his own worth and surpass me. That's why he sent this letter. In it, he said that the seeds of darkness are growing within the kingdom, while the king is preparing for war. The dark mage we're looking for is likely one of them." Hearing this, Ian held out his hand and asked, "May I read it?" Lauren was a bit startled by this. "Read it? Oh, I mean, I suppose it's not surprising anymore," Lauren said as she handed the letter to Ian. After skimming its contents, Ian was able to deduce a few things and spoke up. He's an ambitious one. He wants to use the Dark Mage as an opportunity to raise his family's status. At the same time, Ian had a thought he didn't voice aloud. He wants to root out the vassals with dark intentions to save the kingdom and rule over their lands. The smaller noble families would probably continue to support his actions, What's the point of even writing to his sister? Thinking this, Ian spoke again. It seems he wants to keep you here, in case you steal his credit. Startled, Lauren thought for a moment, then said, "Yes, it's sad, but it's true. At first, I had no intention of capturing the Dark Mage. I sent him a letter, but Vernon never replied, and it's been over a month now." This startled Ian a bit. A month is a long time. If it's been a month since he left to subjugate the Dark Mage... Ian didn't say any more, but Lauren understood his implication. "I understand what you're implying, Ian, but that doesn't mean all hope is lost. He's a strong kid constantly training to surpass me, but what he's doing, could put him in grave danger. That's why we must uncover the truth about who is behind these dark events." As Lauren spoke, she clenched her fists so tightly they trembled. And through this conversation, Ian began to understand a little more. I'm starting to get it now. The reason why Lauren becomes the blood-soaked Avenger. The reason she invades the castle and tries to kill the king. The revenge she was trying to complete. What she said, by becoming that blood-soaked ghost earlier in the game. I didn't even know if Vernon was alive or dead. He must have killed the wrong enemy. While targeting the corrupt members of Angeline, she ended up walking into her own demise. At that time, Lauren was overwhelmed by negative emotions and became a puppet for others. Back to Lauren after calming down, she said, "Ian, I also hope we can find the Dark Mage, but that's not the only reason that I told you this long story. Right now, we don't even know who the enemy is. That's why we need a trustworthy assistant. Ideally, someone skilled in both combat and strategy who would also consider the Dark Mage their enemy. That would be even better." Hearing Lauren's long-winded speech, Ian thought to himself, "I keep wondering why she's telling me this long story when I'm not even curious. Plus, a chain quest has appeared, and now those easy preys have fallen right into my hands. Chain quest, The Fallen Ones. Find and punish the nobles who worship the darkness. Reward gold and unknown stat points. The reward is definitely going to be tempting. However, I don't want to get dragged into situations or quests without any plan." With this in mind, Ian spoke up. "I'm a mercenary. A mercenary never acts on words alone. Instead, can I consider what you've just said as you wanting to make a deal with me?" Hearing this, Lauren quickly replied, "Of course, Ian. Considering the seriousness and risk of the situation, I promise to give you a worthy reward. If you want, I can even offer a noble title." But before she could finish her pitch, Ian cut her off. "The conditions aren't the important thing right now. You need to reconsider the terms of this deal, especially the part about accompanying you. You know how much I stand out now, right? Besides, to prove the existence of the Dark Mage, you'll have to go straight to the royal castle and investigate there. Furthermore, once you enter the castle, it won't be easy to get out since the entire kingdom is preparing for war. So why don't we split up to find those corrupt vassals? You take the inside, I'll take the outside." Having said his piece, Ian fell silent. If she agrees, it means I'll be going alone. In any case, the targets for the next quests are those corrupt vassals, so I can handle them myself. Plus, there's no risk of anyone outside the castle getting involved with Lauren. And while she was still thinking, Lauren raised a concern. "But Ian, I still need a witness out here to prove the Dark Mage's existence." Hearing that Ian remembered Mizu's existence and said, there are other mercenaries in the group. "That's right, we have Mizu," Lauren said. You can take your time to think about it." "There's still time," Ian advised. "But I really don't understand you. I thought you'd want to discuss the conditions first," Lauren asked quizzically. In response, Ian just gave a faint smile and said calmly, "Is that why you offered a noble title?" "Yes, but I think you could play a much bigger role in the kingdom," Lauren said. The moment Ian heard the word title, however, he immediately refused. "Then I refuse. If you offered more money, perhaps it would be a different story." But Ian said this because he had already seen this world's ending. From helping a knight who could become a crazed avenger to killing those who have fallen to darkness. It's all just a long process that has to be done. I need to find the culprit who summoned me here and get an answer as to why they did it. If I get that answer, I'll at least teach them a lesson. To do that, I have to survive no matter what happens. I have to overcome everything," Ian told himself. The next morning, everyone was ready to set off. Before departing, Lauren gave instructions. "Everyone's ready, right? We'll leave this valley following Mizu's directions and take a side path to the graveyard forest. Mizu, please lead the way." As she spoke, she turned to look at Mizu while those two clowns were still glancing over at Ian, remembering their embarrassing actions from yesterday. As for Ian, he was still staring intently at the two stones in his hand, smiling to himself. "I finally got the essence after purification. I can't wait for a chance to try it." And not long after that, they reached the outskirts of the Red Valley. At this point, Philip couldn't help but start complaining to Mizu. "Mizu, what the hell is this place? What kind of guide are you? The path is so bad our horses can't get through." Mizu scratched his head, looked at the path ahead, and mumbled, "It wasn't like this before."
"Then what happened here?"
Philip asked.
Mizu thought for a moment and said, "That was about 4 or 5 years ago, or maybe 6.
"Are you kidding me?" Philip said angrily. Mizu quickly turned back and explained, "But it's not as dangerous as it used to be. This place used to be full of goblins and ogres. Here." Hearing Mizu mention those two races, Ian, who was at the back, quickly asked, "Goblins and ogres?" "That's right. This place used to be their den. They ate all the plants and grass, so only trees with high canopies could survive here. But now the place is completely green, Mizu said, and just then, Ian also casually caught a leaf that was falling in front of him. As he looked at it, he saw the leaf was emitting a vibrant purple magical energy. Just looking at it, you could tell it wasn't safe. Then he spoke up. "It's all green, but because we can't eat this stuff anymore." "What do you mean by that?" Philip hurriedly asked. Hearing this, Ian began to explain, "Have you seen the things that are dead, but can still move like from the other day?" "You mean those corpses?" Philip said fearfully. Then, as if realizing something, he quickly asked, "Wait a minute. You mean monsters can become zombies too?"
The entire forest has been contaminated by dark energy. I don't know what happened, Ian told everyone. At the same time, he thought just like before. I saw in the quest notification. This place is the contaminated forest. The rampant madness of the dark barrier is the reason for all this. I don't know why this outskirts are affected, but it seems this has been going on for a long time. Beside him, Philip, sensing the gravity of the situation, said worriedly, "From the graveyard forest to the contaminated forest, what else could there be? It's only been 1 day since we left the valley and there are so many problems." Hearing this, Ian warned, "From now on, be extremely vigilant. Tell me immediately if you notice anything unusual." "You mean that tree over there?" Mizu said, pointing ahead. And where he was looking, there was a tree trunk with abnormally red fruits. Ian saw it too and thought to himself, "It looks smaller than the one I've encountered before." After thinking, he spoke to the group. "It's best if we don't get near it." "What will happen if we get close to that thing?" Mizu asked anxiously. In response to his question, Ian just smiled and said, "Go and see for yourself. It would love a big guy like you." "It's a man-eating tree," Mizu shouted. "As long as we don't get too close, it'll be fine." "Let's go hurry," Ian said. Mizu, looking worried, began to slowly move forward. "I understand. It's better to stay far away from it." Then the whole group started moving at a slow pace, to slowly get past this tree. At the same time, they kept glancing over at it to see if it was doing anything unusual. Seeing how careful they were being, Ian from the back encouraged them. "Good job. Be careful, everyone." And right after he said those words, the fruits on top of the man-eating tree suddenly began to shake violently, and then a branch shot straight towards Ian. Luckily, Ian managed to dodge in time, but the horse next to him was not so fortunate. Its head was instantly plucked off by the branch. The tree's surprise attack also made the 3 people in front scream in shock while Ian behind them gritted his teeth. "Grind this damn tree. I only bought this horse yesterday." Back at the man-eating tree, after taking the horse's head, it quickly retracted its branch. Over here, Ian started to get furious. His 2 eyes began to glow like car headlights as he charged straight towards it. "Killing my horse! Do you think you can get away?" As he spoke, Ian began to swing the sword in his hand, forcefully slicing the branch in 2. The severed end of the branch that Ian had cut off fell right to the ground, and Lauren's group now had a chance to observe the hideous thing. "Oh, Lord," Philip mumbled. The shape of this thing truly terrified the 3 of them. After witnessing it, Mizu couldn't help himself, and turned to Ian. "You said we'd be fine if we didn't touch it. That's what I thought. But it seems this thing also reacts to sound. That's fine, though. I won't have to listen to you all chattering while we're here." After saying that, he turned to Lauren. "The horse is dead. Could you please help me carry my things and luggage?" "Of course," Lauren said. She then reached out to grab Ian's luggage, but the moment she touched it, a sharp pain shot through her left arm. It caused her to grit her teeth uncontrollably. Ian sensed something was wrong. So he asked, "Is something the matter?" "It's nothing," Lauren said hastily. Then thinking of something, she said to Ian, "Ian, can you find the source of the contamination in this place?" "Are you serious?" Ian said with a questioning look. At the same time, he thought to himself, why would she want me to do that, while her brother is in danger? Well, I wanted to do this anyway. The layout of this road is also quite strange. I should probably check it out carefully. A dangerous contaminated forest right next to the road leading to the Hell Forest. It's as if someone wants to stop us from reaching our destination. Meanwhile, up ahead, Mizu overheard Lauren's words and reacted furiously. "What are you all talking about? I was only hired to be a guide to the forest. The cemetery, now you people are saying we have to go deeper into this damn forest." Faced with his harsh reaction, Lauren spoke gently. "I apologize for this sudden change of plans, Mizu. I will pay you extra upon completion of the mission. I swear on my honor you will not be harmed or lose your life here." And as soon as he heard the words extra pay, the man's attitude changed in an instant. "Well, if you put it that way, for a mercenary like me, how should we proceed deeper into the forest?" "Of course there's a way," Ian said, beginning to use his clairvoyant magic detection skill. His special trait, Sixth Sense, was also activated simultaneously, increasing the range of his magic detection. As soon as the skill was activated, a wave began to radiate from Ian, allowing him to sense everything around him. And after getting a feel for the terrain ahead, Ian told everyone, "Follow me." As they moved, Lauren and the other 2 got to witness his skill at slaughtering the man-eating trees, but then suddenly, right after cutting down a man-eating tree, he stopped. Mizu, who was walking right behind him, saw this and asked, "What's wrong?" Hearing that, Ian's eyes grew serious as he said, "Something's coming to greet us." And following Ian's gaze, countless corpses of goblins and elves were starting to crawl up from the ground in front of them. Philip and Mizu, upon witnessing this scene, were scared to death and yelled, "No way! It's goblins and elves, but their form! They've become zombies!" Ian at the front gritted his teeth and said they're all just as dangerous. Although now they all just look like a bunch of cordyceps. And just as he was preparing to charge into battle, Lauren's voice rang out from behind.
Leave this to me.
At that moment, her entire body began to be enveloped in a layer of mana, a pale blue light. Seeing this, Ian sheathed his sword and said, "You should have used that skill sooner." And while he was talking, the horde of zombies began to charge towards them, like they'd gone mad. Seeing this, Lauren quickly shouted to everyone, "Everyone get down!" Ian's group heard her and knew she was about to use a skill, Ikeu, so they quickly dropped to the ground, and right after that, Lauren swung the sword in her hand forward, creating a wave of light that sliced through everything. And just like that, in a single blow, the horde of zombies was split in half and cut down like grass, seeing that Ian had to admire it. Holy power really is the strongest when dealing with monsters tainted by dark magic. Now I'll take care of the rest. But just as he thought that, Ian noticed it. Suddenly, the holy power surrounding Lauren seemed to be conflicting with her body. And then right after that, Lauren herself spat out a large mouthful of blood and collapsed. Seeing this, Philip immediately rushed to her side, asking, "My lady, what's wrong, my lady?" And Ian, who was behind them after seeing Lauren suddenly collapse like that, felt his head spin. He grumbled, "Great, now I have to do this alone." With that, Ian stood up and said to Mizu, "Mizu, take care of the horse and give me all the oil." "All right," Mizu said hurriedly, and not long after, 4 bags of oil were arranged in front of Ian, and after this was done, he seemed to think of something and said, "Don't tell me you're—" Ian didn't bother to answer the question, but just turned back and said, "Give me the torch and go back to—" "Philip, help him. Don't overthink it and be careful." "What about you?" Mizu asked worriedly. Hearing this, Ian started to sling a bag of oil over his shoulder and said, "I'm going to the center of the forest." Mizu was even more shocked. "To the forest? Alone?" "Don't make me repeat myself," Ian said. Mizu was about to say something more, but Philip from behind spoke up, "Please, come back alive." Seeing Philip's reaction, Mizu also said, "Then please, come back alive," after saying that he quickly ran over to Philip's side. Ian watched him go and muttered, "Worry about yourselves. I'm more worried about you two taking care of Lauren." As he spoke, he began to put the bags of oil into his inventory, and next, he poured a little oil onto the torch, to make it burn brighter. "First, I have to draw the demon's attention to myself. This should be enough," Ian spoke as he gripped his sword tightly. Turning back to Mizu, he saw him talking to Philip. "Hey, Philip, snap out of it. From now on, the two of us have to protect her, so calm down." Meanwhile, on Ian's side, he began to charge and attack the remaining zombies as soon as they crawled up from the ground before they even knew what was happening. Ian closed in on them. "You damn bastards, where do you think you're going?" With that, he swung the sword in his hand and sent a zombie flying. The goblin went to reincarnate, but its action drew the attention of the remaining zombies, who all turned to look at Ian while he was still busy fighting. Then from the tree above him a light flashed, and right after that, the maw of a carnivorous plant lunged straight towards Ian, followed by a system notification. Unique trait. Focus has been activated. And thanks to this activated trait, Ian was able to easily detect the man-eating plant's attack and dodge it instantly. "You don't even give me experience points, so don't get in my way." As he spoke, Ian began to unleash countless slashes, chopping the goblins and the carnivorous plant's tentacle into innumerable pieces. And after dealing with the small fry, Ian smiled towards the front and said, "I bet this made you really angry, didn't it? But don't get mad over just this, because I'm just getting started." Ian then bolted deeper into the forest while a horde of goblin zombies chased after him. The reason Ian didn't deal with these flies was mainly because they were quite weak, so he didn't want to waste time. In short, this mob couldn't run as fast as him, but it wasn't long before right in front of Ian, a giant arm suddenly rose up, followed by the appearance of a massive, utterly disgusting zombie. As for Ian, after seeing it block his path, he charged forward without hesitation. With just 2 or 3 leaps, Ian was able to climb onto its body and pass the giant, a creature with ease. "Shut your mouth, you bastard," Ian said as he kicked right off its head to gain momentum. Then he flew forward like a bird. But this huge creature reacted quite quickly. As soon as it saw that Ian had passed it, it hastily turned its head and swung its arms straight at him. But luckily for Ian, the blow only broke the torch in his hand. Ian himself landed safely on the ground. At that moment, he realized something and muttered, "So you're a named boss, huh? I don't have a tour." But just as Ian said that, he fell silent because at that moment his unique trait, Sixth Sense, had been activated. Awesome. I forgot I had this skill. Now I can see it easily. And thanks to this skill, Ian had found what he was looking for. Found you. The source of the defilement. The bizarre ancient tree parasite. Following Ian's gaze right now, in front of him was a massive ancient tree with countless red fruits on its trunk. But its shape also made Ian wonder why this tree was so big. It must have been accumulating a lot of filth for some time now. That's how it got to be this size. But that doesn't matter. I just need to follow the plan. Finally, I can use the essence. As he said that, Ian started to pull out the essence that he had purified earlier. The essence itself was slowly absorbing the mana on Ian's arm. "It's pulling my magic like a magnet. So this is how it works," Ian muttered, and as soon as he said that, Ian immediately sensed something. He quickly looked up. It turned out the man-eating plant had launched one of its mouths at him while he wasn't paying attention. Luckily, Ian noticed in time and jumped back. He dodged it, but he had to admit the mouth of this man-eating plant was huge. At the same time, the other mouths began to awaken slowly surrounding him. Seeing this, Ian gritted his teeth and ran. "It's not giving me any time to think." Facing the man-eating plant, it began to feast on Ian by commanding its countless mouths to lunge at him all at once, but with his superb perception, Ian was still able to dodge for the time being. The man-eating plant also felt that just using its mouths to attack wasn't enough, so it started using its own roots to attack as well. Then from the ground right under Ian's feet, countless sharp spikes shot up, aiming straight for him. Seeing this, Ian had to pick up his speed again to avoid being skewered. As he ran, he cursed the tree in his mind. Damn it, I could fight back directly, but it's not necessary. As he thought this, Ian started to reach into his inventory. He took out the bags of oil he had prepared beforehand while he was running. He started splashing the oil everywhere, making sure it got all over these mouths. After the bag of oil was empty, Ian casually tossed it aside and started to use his own fire magic. And the oil and fire combo was truly devastating. With just a tiny spark, the entire flame spread rapidly across the tentacles, burning them to a crisp. Then the horrific screams of these mouths echoed through the air. After seeing this, Ian was extremely satisfied. Just as I thought fire is the most effective against a tree, if only I had read the strategy guide for this in the early days of the game, I wouldn't have wasted my precious skill points learning gray magic. Ian mourned his lost points as he looked at the burning tree in front of him. Then right after, he remembered something and muttered, "Now that I think about it, I've had a bad feeling about this. Ever since before I entered the forest. There it is. The second weak point." Following Ian's gaze, a certain spot on the tree trunk was emitting a purple light, but it was quite high up. It's insanely high up. "Damn it," Ian said. But he quickly charged forward. The ancient tree seemed to know that Ian was charging in to finish it off so immediately. It spewed out countless streams of white mist towards him. Seeing this, Ian quickly raised his hand to cover his face, and then he was pushed back by the blast of air. The man-eating plant seized this opportunity and began to command its other still intact mouths to move in. They surrounded Ian, but instead of being scared, Ian actually smiled and said, "I've been waiting for you to release steam to put out the fire." As for the mist the man-eating plant just spewed, it's the emergency steam release technique of the monstrous ancient tree when it's set on fire. After releasing steam to douse the flames, it will perform a wide-range attack with its surrounding heads to guard against its opponent. In exchange, its weak point is exposed for a time. This is the perfect moment for a mage to cast a skill. Thinking this, Ian began to focus his magic into the essence and used the crimson magic spell Fire Breath. It's a short-range spell, but if I increase its magic output using the essence, its power will be on a whole different level. And just as he thought that, Ian's face froze. "Wait," he said. "Why isn't the essence stopping? What the hell? It's draining all my mana. It wasn't like this in the game." And as Ian screamed, the essence in his palm erupted with an intense light, and then, right after, a gigantic pillar of fire blasted straight towards the tree. It let out a blood-curdling scream. The unexpectedly powerful attack forced Ian to grit his teeth and hold on with all his might just to keep it steady, and aimed it forward. The man-eating plant on the other side, after taking a direct hit from such a powerful blow, was instantly vaporized. Back with Ian after firing the blast, he was now clutching his face, groaning, "Oh God, my eyes, I didn't know it would drain mana like that. This essence, why is it different from the game? I know I used to wear tons of holy relics and a magic armor in this game. Did those help me control this essence back then?" Thinking this, Ian looked at the now dull essence in his hand and muttered, "The mana density in this essence is much lower than before. I could have used it another 50 times if I'd embedded it into another weapon." He turned to look at the fiercely burning tree in front of him and said, "Luckily the fire is burning strong. Poor thing, you can finally rest now." As he spoke, Ian took a sword out of his inventory to put it out of its misery. Tathin turned to Mizu. A moment ago, he had also seen another pillar shooting straight into the sky from within the forest. He wondered aloud, what on earth just happened? The pillar of fire is spreading, he definitely caused it. And just as Mizu said this, footsteps approached from behind him, causing the timid guy to quickly turn around, thinking to himself, "Who else is here?" And at that moment, Ian stepped out from the bushes and said, "It's me, put that away." Seeing this, Mizu let out a sigh of relief and quickly asked, "Ian, is that you? Are you okay?" Hearing this, Ian complained, "Do I look like I'm okay? Give me something to wipe this filth off." As he said this, he recalled dealing with that annoying tree. Seriously, who would have thought that tree would go so berserk? When I struck its weak point to finish it, its heads fell off and caused an immediate explosion. Thinking of this, he warned Mizu, "You stay put. If anything happens, you'll have to take care of yourself." After saying that, he started walking towards Lauren and Philip. Seeing Ian approach, Philip hurriedly said, "You're finally here." Ian looked at Lauren and asked, "How is she?" "I've never seen her like this before," Philip said worriedly. As they looked on, Lauren's whole body was covered in sweat and her breathing had become labored. Looking at these symptoms, Philip began to voice his speculation, "I think she's been poisoned." Hearing this, Ian became thoughtful for a moment and then spoke. "She's an apostle, so it can't be dark magic or a curse." He turned to Philip. He then pulled out a sword and said with determination, "Leave it to me. With this, she'll feel better soon." "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" Ian asked as Philip heard him. Philip began to explain his intention. "I'm going to make an incision and squeeze out the tainted blood. That way her body can fight off the poison. Don't worry, I've done this many times." And these words left our Ian completely bewildered. The medical knowledge of this dark age, I'm truly speechless. At that thought, he covered his face and said, "Stop, unless you want to kill her." Ian then looked at Lauren, concentrating. I can feel something strange and unpleasant coming from her left arm. Is that unholy magic? With that thought, Ian turned to Philip and said, "Remove the armor from her left arm." Philip was a bit startled, but right after, he quickly removed the woman's gauntlet. And right then, her arm was revealed before the two of them. Her left arm had turned a dark purple as if it was being corroded by something. And after Philip saw this, he couldn't help but exclaim in shock, "Oh, holy Rasaola!" Even Ian became serious and said, "This miasma, it's from the headless horseman Dullahan, but for an apostle like Lauren. To be affected by this miasma is really confusing. It's absurd. The headless horseman shouldn't be able to stand against holy power." Speaking of holy power, Ian remembered what happened at the church the other day. I could pray to the goddess Jusola, but that priest, he was way too interested in me. I don't want to do it, but in this situation, there's no other choice. Thinking this, Ian clasped his hands to pray, but suddenly, some kind of information was transmitted directly into his head, startling him. "What do you mean that I can absorb it? This feeling, it's the curse of the swamp." As he thought this, Ian looked at the ring on his finger, speechless with astonishment. It can absorb the miasma. This feature, it was never mentioned in the game. This thing basically came from the headless horseman's head. It's not surprising that it can absorb miasma. I guess it doesn't want holy power, but demonic power. And this sudden discovery made Ian grin from ear to ear. He then turned to Philip. "Philip, hold her arm still." "Yes, but what are you going to do?" Philip asked. "I'm going to treat her," Ian replied as he began to take off his glove, revealing a snake-shaped ring. Then the snake came back to life and slowly moved along Ian's finger, which scared Philip, who was standing beside him so much that he hurriedly jumped aside. Then he said, "What the—" "It's moving." Hearing this, Ian calmly said, "It's familiar with me, there's no need to worry." And for some reason, Philip, after hearing Ian's words, he became angry and said, "Are you saying it's a monster? Only the fallen consort with monsters. If you use it, the gods will be enraged." Faced with this outburst from a mere servant like Philip, Ian started to get angry. Even the air around him seemed to change as he said, "Do I look like one of the fallen, Philip?" And seeing this, looked dumbfounded and said, "Well, not exactly, but—" "Then shut your mouth and hold her arm. If you say another word, you can't imagine what I'll do to you," Ian growled. Faced with Ian's menacing words, Philip reluctantly held Lauren's arm tightly. And then, Ian also brought his hand close to hers, and right after the snake lunged straight at her arm and bit down hard. This snake may be small, but it packs a punch. As soon as it bit into Lauren's arm, it began to draw something out. And in no time, the purple marks on her arm disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Philip, watching from the side, said joyfully, "Her ladyship is getting better. The wound has completely vanished." Meanwhile, the black snake, after sucking out some of the magic, seemed to glow brighter. Turning towards Philip, he now looked at the little black snake with a moved expression and said, "This monster, it actually healed her." After saying that, he even reached out his hand to pet the little snake. But right after that, its eyes flashed a dangerous red, and it hissed menacingly at him. Philip quickly pulled his hand back and said, "What's wrong with it?" But Ian, seeing the snake's aggression, gave a dangerous smile and said to it, "Why don't you try that again?" Seeing this, the little black snake quickly bowed its head as if to apologize. Then it slowly crawled back onto Ian's middle finger and returned to its ring form. Turning back to Philip after seeing Ian successfully intimidate the little snake, he was still a bit worried and asked, "Are you sure that thing is safe?" Hearing this, Ian complained, "Taming it doesn't erase its instincts, just like how you can't seem to stop nagging." And faced with Ian's sarcastic remark, Philip was naturally left speechless. Treating it as a bit of banter between them, Ian then said seriously, "Now for the most critical part of the treatment, so shut up and bring me a knife. Bandages and alcohol too." And then right after that, the treatment began thanks to his first aid skills. Not long after, Lauren slowly woke up. Seeing this, both Ian and Philip said happily, "You're awake. You helped me again, Ian. Even though I refused to search for the culprit behind the corruption, I still ended up like this," Lauren said while looking at her arm. And while she was still lamenting, Ian nonchalantly dropped a bombshell, "I've already dealt with the culprit." "What by you?" Lauren and Philip exclaimed in shock. But just a few seconds later, she regained her composure and said, "So, it still ended up like this in the end. Ian, you knew I was overcome by the corrupting magic from the Headless Horseman, didn't you?" "You mean that night from before, milady?" Philip asked, confused. Meanwhile, Ian seemed to have thought of something and asked, "Are you saying that the Dark Mage sent you a warning while you were unconscious?" Hearing that, Lauren began to explain what she experienced while unconscious. "Strangely enough, he only sent me a message. He warned me that I had overstepped my bounds, and that whoever helps me will pay the price." Then he disappeared. Crimson. He mentioned that name when talking about the one who would pay for helping me. That person must be a mage. If we can find out who that is, maybe they can help us. Do you have any leads, Ian? "I'm not so sure," Ian said with a smile while simultaneously cursing the Dark Mage in his head. That son of a bitch, Mage. He's already figured something out." Time passed quickly, and by morning Mizu had arrived at the man-eating tree's location and started digging. And as he dug, he didn't forget to grumble. "This damn thing is dead." He said finding the Dark Mage was the priority, but now he's spending time looking for the source of the corruption. "And why do I have to be the one digging this place up in the morning?"
Ian, who was up on the tree trunk, heard him and said, "Digging is your specialty, isn't it? Hurry up and dig if you have time to whine." As he said this, Ian thought to himself, there might be more items in the surrounding areas. Turning to Philip, who was also looking at the charred tree trunk, said, "Sir, Ian created such a huge fire to destroy the tree, but it didn't spread anywhere else, did it?" Lauren, standing nearby, heard this and explained, "That's because this forest once belonged to the elves. It's very difficult to start a fire in an elven forest. That's why many kingdoms were built near their forests." Ian must have started the fire knowing this. Back to Ian. He was searching the tree trunk and thought happily, it wasn't burned the seed of the ancient demon tree. I can get a skill point. If I eat it according to the guide. But that's a trap. There's a hidden quest. I won't eat it. I'll keep it in my inventory. As Ian thought this, he casually plucked the seed. Then he tossed it into his inventory, and right after he finished, Mizu's scream suddenly rang out from below. "Oh my God!" Hearing that, Ian quickly jumped down while Lauren and Philip also approached and asked, "What's wrong?" Seeing them get closer, Mizu stammered, "Look over here! There's a dead body under the tree roots." Following his gaze, everyone saw that there were indeed a few skeletons under the base of the tree. Ian also looked at the skeletons and explained, they were once sacrifices to this tree. Hearing this, a shocked Mizu asked, "Sacrifices? Are you saying the dark mage sacrificed these people to nurture this dark tree?" Lauren, who was standing nearby, also heard what Ian said. Her face went numb as she muttered, "Human sacrifices." Her mind was flooded with chaotic thoughts. If he doesn't return to the capital within a month? He always wanted to prove he was stronger than me. Even if he's no longer alive. No, it can't be. It's impossible. As Lauren thought this, she began to clench her fists. The atmosphere around her seemed to change, and Ian, who was next to her, noticed it. Gritting his teeth, he cursed, "Damn it!" Turning back to Mizu, he started digging faster, and the more he dug, the more shocked everyone became. Finally, Philip couldn't hold back and spoke up. "Why are there so many dead bodies under this demonic tree? Are these all human sacrifices? If they are all sacrifices, then that's quite a large number. Perhaps the missing Vernon also." And as soon as Philip said this, he realized his slip of the tongue and quickly covered his mouth, turning to look at Lauren. As for Lauren, her entire body was trembling uncontrollably. She was staring at a specific corpse that looked quite similar to the missing Vernon. Upon seeing this skeleton once again, Lauren became agitated. It can't be. He was the one who defeated the darkness and its minions. There's no way he would become a sacrifice for this grotesque creature. But what if it really happened? What if he fell into some kind of trap and became a part of this thing? Before he even had a chance to fight it. If so, I'll bet everything I have to get revenge. As she thought this, Lauren's expression became incredibly menacing. Unconsciously, she clenched her fists again. Even Ian, who was beside her, could feel the change in her and spoke up. "The more I look at this, the more I feel. That guy wasn't the one who did this." Hearing this, Philip, who was behind him, said in shock, "What, you're saying the dark mage wasn't the one who sacrificed these poor people? Is that it?" Hearing his words, Ian began to explain he wouldn't use this method. Even though he's a user of dark magic, he has never used living people as sacrifices, especially not these people. They look like soldiers from the city of Ondel who were transporting prisoners. As Ian spoke, he pulled a pair of iron shackles from the ground. Philip, seeing this, began to think. The two-horned emblem on the shackles, and that inscription. It means they're from the standing army of Ondel City. Realizing this, he spoke up. "Looks like you're right. This is the insignia and tag of the Ondel army." Turning to Ian, he continued, "Think about it. Why would someone use these soldiers as sacrifices? Why choose an army squad? That's quite dangerous." Philip quickly agreed. "You're right. It doesn't make much sense." These words also calmed Lauren down, and she thought, "So that means Vernon, and he isn't here. How pathetic of me getting distracted by things I imagined." Over here, Ian continued. "After defeating the Dark Mage, we learned of the next location. What was mentioned on the tombstone. The largest city in the Kingdom of Asianland, the territory of Marcus Burkhard Eldris. Although this isn't related to the mage, it is related to the victims here. So I will go to Ondel myself to confirm what happened. What do you think about that?" Ian asked Lauren. Now calm, she replied. "All right, I agree." Hearing the two of them, Philip said in surprise, "Wait a minute, you two are going to take on the next mission by going to that city? Finding the culprits and any survivors is also very important," Lauren said. Across from her, Ian, not wanting to waste time, gave an order. "Yes, she agrees. Stop talking and get the horses, Philip. If there's a problem with the horses, I'll ride you to the city instead." "Yes, I understand," Philip said hurriedly. Looking back at Lauren, she was still staring at the bodies, lost in deep thought. Seeing her like this, Ian, who was beside her, spoke up. "Knight Lauren, could you offer a prayer for these people? I think they need to be able to pass on peacefully." "You're right. Let me do it," Lauren said cheerfully, and right after that, she immediately knelt down and began to pray for these people with her hands clasped. But Ian, seeing her like that, had a few thoughts of his own. Should I consider myself lucky she's this simple-minded? Just a moment ago, she nearly lost her mind thinking her younger brother was here. She's had outbursts like this before. This will probably just happen again later. Until we deal with that sorcerer, it's just a fleeting emotion. I hope the holy light can keep her calm. For now, there's no evidence to suggest that Veron is dead. But why do I have such a bad feeling back with Lauren now? Her prayers rang out, "O God of light, please accept the souls of those who have fallen here and grant them the blessing of peace." And as she prayed, images of her younger brother appeared in Lauren's mind. Veron, where are you?"
Varan heard her and turned his head to speak. "Sister, I will prove that I can surpass you, and I will become the head of our clan." Hearing her younger brother say this, Lauren cried out in shock. "Varan, why you don't have to? You're already good enough." "Am I really, sister?" Varen whispered. "Yes, you are. You don't have to prove your strength. I don't know anything. I don't even know that you're dead." Varan began to turn his head back, revealing a face covered in blood. And at that exact moment, Lauren jolted awake, clutching her face in distress. "A dream. What a strange dream." Then she looked around and thought, "Am I in a carriage?" Just then, Ian up front noticed Lauren was awake and spoke up. "You're awake. How long was I asleep? And where did you get this carriage?" Lauren asked. Hearing her, Ian immediately knew the woman didn't remember a thing. He then had to explain, "It seems you don't remember anything, huh, while we were on our way. I suggested we use this abandoned carriage to move faster." Hearing Ian's words, Lauren slowly began to remember and said, "Oh, that's right. I was so overwhelmed by my emotions I can't remember anything at all," Lauren thought to herself. Meanwhile, Ian continued, "You woke up just in time. We're about to reach the graveyard forest." "Huh, since when?" Lauren exclaimed in surprise and quickly looked around. She then turned and yelled at Mizu, "Why didn't you say so sooner?" Hearing this, Mizu became completely flustered. He turned to look at Ian. Luckily, Ian understood and spoke up to get him off the hook. "I told him not to wake you. If you knew, you wouldn't have been able to rest. If nothing's wrong, you should get some more rest." Ian's words left Lauren a bit stunned. Then she let out a sigh and said, "Phew. All right, I'll drop it this time." What a pain, Ian thought to himself from up front. And at that very moment, the moving carriage suddenly came to a halt. Mizu, seeing this, asked, "Why'd we stop?" "It's not me. The horse refuses to go any further," Ian said. At the same time, Lauren in the back noticed something and said, "The air here, it feels just like the tainted forest." "This is it," Ian confirmed. "From this point on, this place is demon territory," Ian said coldly. Philip beside him also remembered something and asked, "Demon territory? You mean this is the cursed island?" "That's right. This is an area affected by the madness of the shadow barrier. This region has been cursed and has become extremely toxic. The laws of nature here are completely different from the outside. We have no idea what might happen. So this is why no one ever returns from this area. They can't find their way out," Philip thought to himself. Back with Lauren, she turned to Mizu and said, "We need to leave our luggage outside. Just bring what's necessary." Hearing this, Mizu said nervously, "Wait a minute. He said we can't go back once we step inside." At his words, Ian spoke up from the side, "It's fine. It'll disappear if we defeat the Dark Sorcerer, I'm guessing." Hearing this, Mizu shrieked, "That's so irresponsible. My job was just to guide you to the graveyard forest, so do you want me to take care of you right now?" Ian said coldly, and his menacing tone made Mizu's attitude change instantly. "What I meant to say is no matter how dangerous it gets, you can count on me." After that, everyone finished preparing their essentials and readied themselves to officially enter the graveyard forest. As they were about to enter, Philip broke into a sweat and said, "Even though I prepared for this, it seems it's still scarier than I thought." Hearing this from behind, Mizu was about to suggest that they all go back together, but before she could, Ian, who was in the front, said, "Is everyone ready? Once we're in, we're not turning back no matter what happens." "Right," Lauren said with determination. At that moment, a blue light flashed in Ian's eyes, signaling that he had started using his perception skill. Following Ian's gaze, it seemed a large, dark shadow was staring intently at them. "Looks like it's noticed I'm here. But that doesn't really matter. You should get ready to welcome your esteemed guests. I've been looking forward to seeing your face. You're going to pay for getting in my way with those creatures, and for denying me my damn experience and rewards," Ian thought with excitement. And with that, the group began to move into the forest. But the deeper they went, the more the cowardly Philip trembled until he finally turned around and said to Ian, Are we going the right way?" "We're going the right way. How many more times are you going to ask?" Ian complained, turning to Philip. It made him remember what happened a few nights ago. He wanted to slap himself. "Why did I have to say that? Do you really think the Dark Witch is in the cemetery forest? We could be wasting our time." Ian had just laughed and said, "Just admit you're scared." And with his pride on the line, Philip had declared without hesitation, "Scared, not a chance, I'll lead the way." And so today Philip was indeed leading the way. "I can't believe he actually let me lead." Philip thought, his face drenched in sweat. He then glanced worriedly towards Lauren. The holy night was, from his perspective, the atmosphere around Lauren didn't seem quite right. Seeing this, Philip clenched his fists and told himself, "I need to focus." Behind him, Ian saw his expression and smiled. He has no idea what's going on. Then Ian's expression turned serious as he observed what was ahead and sensed strange things. Something feels very strange. How are all these things still alive? The defilement should have already drained all the life from this land. And not long after, the group passed through a curtain of white mist. Seeing this, Philip dropped to his knees in celebration. "Are we out?" "We're out." "I did it, oh goddess Rasola, thank you." Mizu beside him was visibly pleased. "I can't believe you actually did it. I could practically hear your soul being drained away." Seeing these two acting like clowns, Ian spoke up. "Cut the nonsense, this is just the beginning." After speaking, he looked ahead and thought to himself, "I've finally made it here. The entrance to the underground cemetery." Following Ian's gaze, the group saw a rather beautiful-looking tomb. They then approached it,
and they saw a staircase leading down.
This is the place, Lauren said.
Just then Ian stepped forward and announced to everyone, "I'll lead from here." But his brief words startled Mizu.
We're just going down there without any kind of plan.
"You should have done this sooner," Ian said coldly. "Follow me." After he spoke, the group followed Ian down the staircase. After going deeper inside, they realized it was an incredibly long spiral staircase leading down. And after walking for so long that their legs ached and they still hadn't arrived aboard, Philip asked, "Are we at the bottom floor yet?" And just as he asked that question, they all stepped onto the final floor. Before them was a vast open space.
There are so many underground spaces. It's still so dark. I think I'm getting claustrophobic,
Philip said. Just then, Lauren spoke up.
Ian, wait. I think we need to pray first.
Hearing this, Ian turned and asked,
Is there a problem?
The moment we entered this place, the resonance of the Holy Seal began to weaken. Seeing the confusion on Ian's face, she explained, when a person is chosen as an apostle, they receive a Holy Seal. By using the Holy Seal, an apostle can attune themselves with their deity and receive divine grace. But her explanation only made Ian even more furious.
What the hell? Isn't that just a slave contract?
I almost sold my soul because I didn't know about this.
I can't even trust the gods in this damn world, he thought.
He regained his composure and said, "All right, you can pray." Hearing him say that, Lauren nodded, drew the sword from her hip, and thrust it forcefully into the floor. Then a stream of pale blue holy power began to rise from her body, and then, while the three of them were waiting for the girl to finish her prayer, Mizu looked back and asked,
Hey, how come there's nothing here?
"So what?" Philip asked from the side.
Mizu then explained, The name of this place is the Graveyard Forest. I heard hundreds of corpses are buried here.
"Do you see any of them?" And just as he said that, Ian spoke up. "Are you really asking that question? I guess you can see for yourselves. This guy has been preparing since the moment we set foot in this place." As Ian spoke, a light began to emanate from his eyes, a sign of his perception skill, while Philip and Mizu still didn't understand what his words meant at all. Then a strange rumbling sound came from behind them. The two cowards quickly turned to look and saw the door they had entered through. It was closing. "Oh no! The entrance gate, it's closing." The two of them started screaming as they ran towards the gate, and when they placed their hands on it, they noticed some kind of strange writing appearing on the upper part of the gate. Or rather, it wasn't just on this door. The entire wall here had these strange characters appearing on it. Seeing this, Philip used the torch in his hand to get a better look at the characters, and said, "Is this an ancient language?" To answer his question, Ian, who was up ahead, began to explain, "It's a type of magic circuit. The graveyard's magic system has begun to operate. I told you things are just getting started." And just as Ian said, footsteps began to echo from ahead of them, and then countless glowing eyes appeared in the darkness. Soon, the whole group saw the source of those sounds. It turned out to be the footsteps of a skeleton legion slowly advancing towards them. Just at a glance, there seemed to be several hundred of them. And despite standing before such a large army of skeletons, but Ian didn't show any fear at all. He took an iron mace from his inventory and said, "What a way to say you're a necromancer without having to open your mouth." Ian's act of pulling the mace out of thin air also stunned Philip and Mizu. Where did he get that mace from? Am I seeing things? And while these two were wondering, the skeleton army closed in on them. Seeing this, Ian quickly commanded, "Everyone protect the knight." After saying that, he took the initiative and charged forward to meet the skeletons head-on, while the other two shouted in astonishment, "You're going alone!" Back to Ian, he had already charged right into the middle of the skeletons. As soon as he landed, he used the iron mace in his hand to smash one of their skulls. The rest of the skeletons immediately rushed him. Seeing this, Ian quickly used the low-level gray magic shield. For some reason, this skill created a shockwave that sent all the skeletons trying to close in on him flying back. And that wasn't all. Ian then began to use another low-level gray magic, Blade of the Wind God. He enchanted his mace with it. Then with a powerful swing, he was able to take down 3 skeletons at once. "Not bad. So this is what it feels like to use Blade of the Wind God with a mace," Ian said happily after witnessing its immense power in action. It was crushing the skeletons. At the same time, Ian also sensed that within this horde of skeletons, there seemed to be one that was watching him intently. It looked like the dark mage was observing him through this skeleton's eyes. "Still hiding and watching like a rat," Ian muttered. He then looked back at Lauren, who was still praying, and thought, "It's not time yet. The more skeletons there are, the higher the chance that one of us will die. What I need to do now is buy as much time as possible." Thinking this, Ian began to pull his mace back and said, "Hey, are you scared? Then watch carefully from behind. Watch how I blow the heads off every single one of your little toys." This taunt from Ian was also driving the sorcerer mad, and through this skeleton, everyone could hear his curses. "Damn you, you bastard, Grimson!" After speaking, he began to command all of his skeletons to charge forward and attack all at once. Seeing this, Ian was not only unafraid, but actually happy. "Thanks for losing your cool. Let's see who can last longer." And just like that, the solo battle between Ian and a horde of skeletons began. Over here, seeing Ian having to face them alone, Philip grew worried and turned to ask Mizu for her opinion. "Shouldn't we help him? There are so many skeletons." Hearing this, Mizu immediately said, "Didn't you hear what he said? We have to protect her." And just as he said this, it seemed Lauren's prayer was complete as her voice rang out. "Philip, Mizu, clear a path." Then she rushed forward, shouting, "Ian, up ahead!"
Ian saw this and quickly dodged to the side, letting the girl begin her assault on the skeletons. Back to Lauren. At this moment, she changed her grip on the sword. Instead of holding the hilt, she gripped the blade and treated the pommel as a striking weapon. Next, she swung the sword in her hand forcefully, and with just one blow, this girl smashed countless skeletons into smithereens. And as if that wasn't enough, she then swung her sword twice more, causing the bones on the skeletons to shatter like rain. Even Ian, watching from behind, was taken aback and thought, "Ha, whenever I witness this, it really makes me feel useless. Even so, I won't just stand by and watch you fight." As he spoke, Ian charged forward, striking down a zombie that was trying to get close to Lauren. And as if by telepathy, the two of them looked at each other and nodded, understanding the other's intentions without a word. What followed was a perfectly synchronized attack from the two of them. When these two teamed up, their power increased exponentially, leaving Philip in the back dumbfounded as he watched them fight. Up ahead, Mizu yelled, "What are you doing? Hurry up and follow." "I'm coming," Philip replied hastily, and started to charge forward as well. And so, the slaughter by Ian and Lauren continued. But after fighting for a while, Lauren's face was drenched in sweat. Seeing her condition, Ian thought, "One of Lauren's weaknesses I know of is her stamina. Right now she looks strangely exhausted. More importantly, it seems she doesn't have enough holy power. Is the connection between Lauren and the divine spirit getting weaker?" Back to Philip and Mizu. While they were running for their lives up ahead, they realized the path before them had ended. He cried out, "Dead end what? Are you serious?" And at that same moment, Ian further back also sensed something. He thought, "What is this? Magic is flowing through the characters carved on this stone." And just as he thought that, before everyone's eyes, all the characters on the wall began to glow simultaneously, causing Mizu to ask worriedly, "This time, well, what's happening now?" And as if to answer Mizu's question, the skeletons that had been shattered on the ground were suddenly drawn by something. They started getting pulled in one direction. Seeing this, everyone quickly looked toward where the bones were being drawn, and not long after, a slimy monster with countless skeletons inside it appeared before them. The moment Ian saw it, he recognized it. That's an immortal watcher, a corpse-eating slime. It's already appeared. This is happening sooner than in the game. Is it because it collected enough corpses and completed its fusion? Ian thought to himself. Back to Philip after seeing the monster's form. He was scared to death and screamed, "What the hell is that thing? Its shape is so damn weird. Look out, Philip, it's coming." Philip screamed as he saw the slime starting to charge towards them. And right after that, Mizu's shout was also heard from behind. "The path back here is blocked. We're out of options." But then all of a sudden, the wall in front of Mizu suddenly started rumbling and slowly descended into the ground. This made the man overjoyed as he said, "It's lowering. Look, there's a way out." But he hadn't even finished saying out when he saw an army of skeletons waiting for them on the other side of the wall. Seeing the sight of the army, Mizu's group was scared stiff and yelled, "What the hell is this?" Even Ian found the situation difficult now, thinking they should be on a much lower floor. "You must have gone to a lot of trouble to prepare this for me, you bastard. This is going to be tough. We're caught between the monsters." At that moment, Lauren started to voice her thoughts. "I think I have to kill that huge monster." Hearing that, Ian immediately said, "You don't have to kill it, just keep it from getting close. I'll open a path for us to escape." "Got it." After saying that, the two of them charged toward their opponents. Ian started bashing the skeletons with ease while Lauren began to hold back the carrion slime. And while they were fighting, a worried Mizu said to Philip, "Keep moving forward back towards Ian." Every time he crushed a skeleton, its bone fragments were soon absorbed by the carrion slime behind them. This was just like in the game. Those bone fragments were being absorbed by the carrion slime. "This is clearly its source of infinite energy," Ian muttered as he continued to fight and assess the situation. "So far so good. There are a few minor changes, but if we continue at this rate, then everything will still go according to my plan." And just as he thought that, a sudden change occurred. Ian's eyes widened as he spotted some kind of corpse floating in the air above. "Damn it, what is that thing doing up there?" This desiccated-looking monster is called a lake wraith. The wraith is an evil creature that lives around a lake. It seduces men and then absorbs their life force. It drowns women at the bottom of the lake, then takes over and uses their bodies. After seeing this monster, Ian gritted his teeth and said, "We weren't supposed to run into this thing. Is it also under the necromancer's control?" Back to the lake wraith. After clutching its head for a moment, it began to use its power. Countless streams of light suddenly shot out from the monster's head. They pierced the skeletons below, and right after that, the skeletons began to tremble and were upgraded into armored skeletons. Then they charged towards Ian at a much faster speed than before. "So fast," he thought to himself, then casually smashed the first skeleton that rushed him. "Get out of my way," Ian shouted, and then took the initiative to charge toward the lake wraith. Along the way, he knocked aside any skeleton that dared to block his path. "Take this, you bastard," Ian said as he began to swing his mace towards the lake wraith. But with its ability to fly, it easily dodged Ian's attack with a slight tilt and rushed towards Philip and Mizu behind him. And then the monster. This skin and bones creature let out a strange shriek. And at that moment, Ian sensed that the lake wraith was about to create a powerful gust of wind. A skill that not only causes damage but also throws its prey into a prolonged state of panic. Ian immediately came up with a solution as soon as he sensed it. "If I don't stop its spell right now, Philip and Mizu will die." Realizing this, Ian hurriedly shouted, "You two cover your ears now!" Then right after that, Ian began to use his fire magic, creating countless fireballs that floated around Philip and Mizu. Seeing this, they quickly covered their ears, even though they had no idea what was going on. His shout also caught the attention of Lauren, who was fighting up ahead. Back to Ian as soon as he saw the fireballs had formed. He thrust his hand forward, directing the fireballs to surge ahead and attack. With the incredible speed of the fire magic attack, the Lake Wraith monster didn't even have time to react. And the final result was, it took the full force of all those fireballs. It was hit directly and let out a blood-curdling scream. But that wasn't all. In that last fire magic attack, Ian had also split off 2 fireballs to strike the carrion slime. Back with Philip and Mizu after the explosion subsided. The 2 of them spoke in amazement. Unbelievable! He created fire. Could he be? But before they could finish, Ian's shout rang out. This isn't an amusement park. We're in a fight for our lives. So pay attention, we're not done yet. And after those words, Ian turned back to trade blows with the skeletons while Lauren continued to hold back the slime. Back with Ian, it seemed he had managed to get a few magic spells off. It also made him feel a lot lighter, so he said cheerfully, I tried to avoid using it just in case, but now that I have it, feels really satisfying. Now that I've used it anyway, I might as well use it properly. As Ian spoke, he began to create countless fireballs around him, followed by a merciless barrage of projectiles from his position. Poor skeletons, they didn't even get to touch him. They were all blasted to smithereens. This magical ability of his also made Lauren, who was behind him, start to think, so that's his true power. Now I get it. I never expected this to happen. He doesn't look like a mage at all. Knowledge and experience, vision and strategy. He's cautious and seems so mysterious. The crimson mage I've been looking for is Ian, Lauren thought as she began to chase the spirit fox. As it lunged toward Ian, looks like I'm in his debt again in the end, Lauren told herself, and right after that, she gathered her momentum. She dashed forward and sliced off one of the monster's arms, much to its bewilderment. After dealing with the spirit fox, she called out to Ian. Ian, I've taken care of the swamp wraith. Yeah. Ian heard her and happily shouted back, then get behind me and provide support. There's a junction up ahead, and it's going to be pretty tough. A junction, got it, Lauren said hastily. At the same time, she wondered to herself, the way he said that, it's like he's been here before. Is that some kind of mage's predictive ability? But just as Lauren thought that, she gasped when she saw a headless corpse up ahead. At that moment, Lauren's trembling hand reached toward the body as she thought, this armor. It's a Royal Army uniform. Could it be? As she thought, Lauren began searching for the nameplate on the corpse. Royal Army Knight Charles Castle. Lauren over here? After seeing that the name wasn't her brother's, she was able to let out a sigh of relief and said, Ha! Ha! It's not Vernon. Thank goodness. But suddenly, the essence she was holding in her chest suddenly erupted with an unusual power. This thing is emitting a contaminated power source, I don't know why, but it's different from that dark mage's magic. It belongs to someone else. The source of the mana is coming from the left. Is it calling to me? Lauren thought as she turned to look in the direction she felt the call from. And while she was still lost in thought, Ian's scream suddenly rang out. Lauren, watch your back. His shout startled her. She jerked around and hurriedly turned back, but from her perspective, the corpse-eating slime was already right on top of her. And then, the giant body filled with bones sent Lauren flying. Philip and Mizu saw this and rushed to help. Milady, are you all right? Oh no, you're injured again. And while they were worrying about Lauren, Ian's scream rang out again. What are you guys doing? Get over here now. Hurry this way, move it. Ian urged them, but before the 3 of them could move, a wall crashed down on the path between them, separating both sides. Seeing this, Ian grumbled, damn it, she didn't make it over in time. Just as I thought. This path has split us up. I have no other choice. I have to take down the dark mage first. Only then will everyone be safe. With that, Ian turned around and prepared to face the horde of skeletons. Back with Lauren's group, Mizu shouted in anger, damn it, this blasted separation magic. We've been cut off. Philip beside her also felt worried and asked, what should we do now? And before he could ask another question, the slime monster charged at them again. Behind us! It's coming from behind! Philip screamed. At that moment, Lauren also sensed the direction of the mana that had called to her, and thought, I guess this is the only way. Focus. I need to get Philip and Mizu out of here. With that thought, she began to stand up and said, I'll open a path. You guys follow me. After speaking, she started charging straight in the direction from which she had felt the call. Philip and Mizu also hurried after them, and not long after breaking through a group of skeletons blocking their way, Lauren's party entered some kind of room. To their astonishment, inside this room was a host of skeletons standing neatly in rows on both sides. And the strangest part was, when they entered, these skeletons didn't move at all. Seeing this, Philip asked in confusion, what is this? Why aren't they attacking us? And just as he said those words, suddenly all the skeletons bowed their heads in unison, and right after that, a voice echoed from the front. Stand back. You have arrived at the right place. Welcome, Apostle of Tyron Meve Lauren. Or should I call you Sister Lauren? Hearing this voice, Mizu asked, who's there? And at that same moment, Philip's face began to turn pale as he muttered, wait, that voice. And the one with the strongest reaction was none other than Lauren. Her eyes widened as she said, no way. You're Van Ong. Why are you... And before she could finish her question, Venong just remained silent and closed his helmet's visor. Then, chum, he charged forward and swung his sword straight at Lauren. Luckily, she managed to block the blow just in time. As the two were locked in a struggle, Lauren asked again, "Why are you here? Why are you attacking me?" Hearing this, a crazed look appeared in his eyes, and he said, "Ha, can't you see, sister? The time has come for me to surpass you." As he spoke, he began to put more force into his push, forcing Lauren back. "I can even kill you." Saying this, he started to raise his sword high. Cutting back to Ian, he was blocking a slash from some skeleton and said, "Shh, you guys are so annoying, take this." As he said that, Ian threw away the weapon in his hand and ran straight ahead to the astonishment of the remaining skeletons. Then he spotted a statue of a knight up ahead. He thought found it. The release mechanism. With that thought, Ian stomped his foot hard to gain momentum. Then he leaped high into the air, launching himself towards the statue. He then landed lightly on the hilt of the giant statue's sword. Ian's landing created enough pressure to make the tip of the knight's sword plunge downwards, revealing a hidden staircase within the room. Seeing this, Ian jumped down and muttered, "Here it is, the secret entrance. Normally, this is the escape route after defeating the Dark Mage. But since I already know about it, I can get through without having to fight the Death Knight." And while Ian was standing there thinking, the skeletons behind him had closed in. Seeing this, Ian just smiled at the skeletons and said, "You want me to go in? I'd be more than happy to." With that, Ian dove straight into the secret passage below. To slow his descent, he kicked off the walls on either side, and soon after, Ian shot out in front of a temple. Not even the king of Aslan, a legendary hero, knew of this catacomb's existence. This is the temple where the ancient fairies worshipped the god of death, he thought. Ian landed gently, steadying himself. And there in front of him was the figure of some mage. He was sitting comfortably on a stone throne, and he began to mumble, "You have come a very long way, but this is my domain located within the demon realm. With my magical power, I will only grow stronger in here. Now I will slowly send you to your death." But before this villain could even finish his speech, Ian on the opposite side blasted him with a super powerful fire spell. Moreover, Ian combined this attack with the purified essence he had from before. After launching the attack, he scornfully said a few words to the mage. "Haven't you learned anything? Still spouting nonsense after what happened last time." After speaking, Ian thought to himself, "If I carefully use the essence this way, I won't have the problem of it draining all my magic like last time." Turning back to the Dark Mage, it seemed he had survived Ian's recent attack, and he was going insane. You bastard!" As he spoke, he began to blast away the rubble, pinning him down, and then his bizarre form appeared before Ian. It was bizarre because although this guy was human, he had 6 arms. Seeing this, Ian was stunned. What the hell is that? But despite the brief surprise, he then smiled and thought, "He seems weaker than I remember from the game." With that thought, Ian said to him, "Too much talk. You still haven't used your strongest form. If you've got the guts, then bring it on." Back to the Dark Mage, upon hearing this taunt from Ian, he screamed, "You weakling scumbag!" After saying that, he began to use his power. Immediately, the scepter in his hand began to glow, and he yelled into the air, "By my command, ancient spirits!" And after he said this, for some reason, suddenly a horde of skeletons appeared out of thin air, and after summoning them, he began to lecture Ian, realizing that a red blood mage like you used a relic to cast gray magic, but now you no longer have that ability. Since you're not holding it anymore, I'll make you realize just how weak you are for daring to step into my domain. With that, he used some sort of bizarre spell. It created countless wraiths that began to charge towards Ian. At that moment, the skeletons had already surrounded him from all 4 sides. The Dark Mage, watching from a distance, saw this, and began to laugh like a madman. "Ha! Are you so scared you're frozen in place?" But he didn't even get to celebrate for 3 seconds before Ian gave a light stomp and launched himself 10 meters into the air, escaping the skeleton's encirclement. The Dark Mage below, seeing Ian fly like a bird, was so shocked his jaw dropped. "What? How did you do that?" Back to Ian. He began to summon fireballs to attack again, but this time it was on a completely different level. "This is the first time I've used this skill, but it reached level 2 instantly. Maybe because it's pretty easy to use. It's a little hard to aim, but that's fine since enemies are everywhere." Following the skeleton's gaze, up toward the ceiling, countless fireballs had been created. This was the beginner-level red blood magic fire rain. And then, before the dazed eyes of the skeletons, the rain of fireballs from the sky began to pour down. Every single fireball that fell took down countless skeletons with it. And the Dark Mage in the back, after witnessing this scene, couldn't contain his anger and roared, "You bastard! How can a beginner-level skill be this powerful?" With that, he began to gather his magic into his scepter and swung it forward. With that swing, an arc of light was created in front of him. This was his Phantom Shield skill. After casting the spell, he shouted with glee, "You can't possibly dodge this while you're in midair!" To answer his question, Ian created a flame in the palm of his hand, and right after that, he threw it straight down, creating a small explosion. Using the blast's recoil, Ian managed to dodge the impact with the Shadow Shield. The Dark Mage, seeing this incredible sight, looked like his eyes were about to pop out of his head. He changed his direction to dodge in midair. By using the recoil of an explosion, back to Ian after getting past the shield, he quickly pulled a mace from his inventory, and began to change his magical attribute from fire to wind. Then, thanks to the properties of this type of magic, Ian shot like a rocket towards the Dark Mage.
The bald man gritted his teeth and raised his staff to block the blow. "Damn it," he mumbled. But of course, an ordinary mage. How could he possibly stand against a physical-type mage like Ian? The result was, with just one swing of his mace, Ian instantly severed both of the man's arms. The pain from suddenly losing both arms made the bald man unable to bear it and let out a horrifying scream. As for Ian, despite having taken the man's arms, he clicked his tongue in disappointment. Tisk, tisk. And then, he swung the mace in his hand and mumbled, "That move is pretty hard to use, huh? I should experiment with combining it with a few other skills. I could have tried so many things if I weren't such a weak character." While Ian was reviewing his recent moves, the dark mage had managed to use his magic to stop the bleeding, then turned to curse at him. "You bastard, you don't just have one relic to use gray magic. You caught me off guard, you cunning bastard." Faced with this accusation, Ian just laughed and admitted it right away. "Oh, you figured it out? I prepared it specifically to fight you." The dark mage on the other side heard this and shouted, "I admit it. You're not useless. Now you'll have to face me in my strongest form." As he finished speaking, the scepter in his hand began to crackle chaotically with lightning. Then, he aimed his scepter at the stone throne and a strange transformation began. All the skeletons that Ian had previously shattered started getting pulled toward the throne. Ian, on the other hand, calmly watched him use his skill and said, "Phase 2, the second monster. Come on, hurry up. I'm waiting." Before long, a skeleton mage about 5 meters tall appeared before Ian. As for Ian, after seeing his new form, he licked his lips eagerly and said, "I guess your weakness of having low physical resistance is gone now, huh? This guy's form is really hard to predict. Let's turn our attention back to the Dark Mage." He was also beginning to show Ian what he was capable of. "This is the power I've obtained from the Dark Void." As he spoke, he began to raise his hand straight up to the sky, and right after that, streams of magical energy gathered and transformed into the shape of an incredibly tormented face in the palm of this guy's hand. And after this technique was fully charged, he issued a threat to Ian. "I'll make you feel that being granted death here is the only blessing you deserve." Finishing his sentence, he swung his arm forcefully, firing this soul cannon towards Ian. The power and speed of this attack seemed to be quite terrifying, so Ian hastily dodged to one side. "He's too fast," he mumbled, then started to move faster. But this attack seemed to have some kind of target-seeking function or something. After Ian moved to dodge it, the projectile began to weave and chase after him. Seeing Ian start to run like a cornered mouse, the dark mage gloated. "Go on, try to run as fast as you can." Seeing him laugh like that, Ian broke into a sweat and thought, "It seems he's really enjoying this. He's letting his guard down right now. Good. I'll get close to him by running around like this. As I run in circles like this, he won't be able to fire his magic orbs continuously. Just a little more, just a little bit more. The moment he stops, I'll have my chance." While running, Ian began to watch the guy's hand closely. He was timing the exact moment he would stop. "Now," Ian thought to himself, seeing that the guy had run out of ammo, and he immediately charged forward. At the same time, he didn't forget to use red blood magic fire dance. As soon as he was in range, he unleashed all of the fireballs, firing them towards the mage's hulking body. However, it seems the attack only hit the dark mage's feet, so it didn't cause much damage. And this just made him laugh his head off. "Ha ha, what's this? You're attacking my feet. It seems you can't even aim straight anymore. You're finished." At this point, the guy started firing his laser cannon again, but at that very moment, he suddenly lost his balance, causing the laser cannon to veer up slightly and miss its target. "Did I not aim straight?" Ian said with a sarcastic tone. At this point, the essence crystal in his hand had completely shattered. Next, he executed a long slide, passing right between the guy's legs and dashing behind him. Seeing this, the dark mage hurriedly turned his head and shouted, "Die!" But he had only turned halfway when he realized his body was stuck fast to the ground. He quickly looked down at his feet and screamed, "My legs! They can't move! Why? What is this? Don't tell me! You were aiming for my legs to hold me in place?" After saying that, he quickly turned to look at Ian to see what trick he would pull next. And at that moment, Ian's voice rang out again. "You catch on quick! But you're already standing still. Now I have enough time to cast a mid-level red blood magic spell. It's too late for regrets." Ian spoke as he began to use some kind of magic, causing his entire right hand to be enveloped in lightning. This ultimate move looks a lot like one from a certain Uchiha. Getting back to the story, after seeing Ian use this magic, the dark mage was stunned and said, "Gray magic. You don't need a relic to use magic." "Does that even matter now?" Ian said coldly. And then before the skeletal figure's terrified eyes, Ian used the mid-level red blood magic gray magic lightning chains. As soon as this magic was activated, Ian just slapped his hand on the ground, creating 2 black chains. They pierced through the dark mage's enormous body, electrocuting him until he was charred. And the result of taking a direct hit from a mid-level magic spell at such close range, left the dark mage's entire body burnt black. Smoke was billowing from his face, and then his hulking body slowly disintegrated and collapsed right before Ian's eyes. Seeing this, Ian quickly backed away and grumbled, "Damn it, that's disgusting." As he spoke, he brushed off the corpse dust created by that thing and turned toward the dark magician. It seemed the man was still taking his last few breaths and managed to voice the final question of his life. How? How could you learn another type of magic like that? You're at death's door and you're still curious, huh? Ian said as he began to draw his sword to send him on his way nice and quick. Hearing this, the dark mage started cursing his fate. "If only I had more time. The true nature of the origin. The power of the abyss, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, Ian was listening to him drone on. He didn't want to let this guy live a second longer in case he had some trick up his sleeve to escape, so he slammed his foot right onto the man's chest and said, "I'm not going to comfort you, but even with more time, you would never have become immortal or realized the truth, you pathetic fool." Hearing this, the Dark Mage screamed, "Impossible! That's absurd," and right after that, he realized Ian knew his name and turned his head in shock, saying, "How do you know my na—" But before he could finish, our cold-hearted hero swung his sword instantly, sending the man's head flying into the air. "You ask too many questions. You wouldn't understand even if I told you anyway," Ian said with a sigh, and then, suddenly a wave of pain hit him, causing him to wince and mutter, "Ha! I've overused my mana again. I'll collapse if I use even one more spell. My head is killing me." As he thought this, he turned to look at the Dark Mage's severed head and thought, "Time to collect the loot. I'll keep his staff and use the head as proof." And then, as he slowly approached the body to collect the items, something suddenly happened. A stream of purple energy suddenly erupted from the corpse's eyes, startling Ian. Then this purple energy slowly transformed into the shape of the Dark Mage. Seeing this, Ian was at a loss for words. Is that the mage's soul? For crying out loud, now there's a third phase. This is a little different from the game I remember. Across from him, the Dark Mage's soul let out a roar and charged at him. Seeing this, Ian gritted his teeth, conjured a fireball, and muttered, "Damn it!" And just at the moment when he and the Dark Mage were about to fight for a third time, another anomaly occurred. Cracks began to appear in the space behind the soul, and then they shattered open, revealing some other dimension behind it. This sudden phenomenon startled the Dark Mage's soul, but before it could even process what was happening, his soul was pulled inside. The Dark Mage's spirit began to scream wretchedly, trying to resist the pull, but its struggles were completely futile. As a result, the spirit couldn't even last 2 seconds before being sucked completely inside, and the spatial rift, after devouring the Dark Mage's soul, slowly sealed itself shut. Ian, watching this, was a bit confused and speculated, what was that, the void? The void, primordial chaos, and the abyss. Those were the things the fallen ones worshipped in the game. He loved to worship the void. Well, now he's finally met it, even though I wasn't the one who did it. As he said this, he turned to look at the walls covered in strange symbols and muttered, "Anyway, why are the magic circuits here still active? Don't tell me it's still not over." Even with the Dark Mage dead, putting those questions aside, Ian entered the room below. And in the center of this room, he found a stone pedestal with a sphere floating above it. I didn't know this place was behind the altar. This must be where all the magic circuits connect. Then he also found the Dark Mage's journal. He muttered seriously, "This mage kept a research journal like some kind of maniac. There's bound to be some useful information in here. I'll have to find it." With that, Ian put the book away to study later. After that, he looked at the magic sphere again and said, "Is this the source of the magical energy? But is this really the central core of everything here? I've never seen one this big. It's about the size of a basketball. It doesn't feel like a vessel for tainted magic. It feels like pure mana. It's like holy power. It'd be a waste to just destroy it. Should I trust my own resistance? Just in case, I'll channel a little bit of mana into my hand." He began to gather energy in the palm of his hand, then reached out and touched the sphere. But the very moment his finger made contact, the sphere suddenly unleashed a powerful suction, pulling his entire hand right inside. This sudden event caught Ian by surprise. He tried to pull his hand back, but it was no use. "Damn it," Ian yelled. And right after that, the sphere in front of him erupted in a brilliant flash of light. When he opened his eyes again, he found that his consciousness was drifting, floating, in the middle of space, surrounded by countless planets. What is this? What the hell is going on? Where am I? I don't know what this place is, but it's so vast. It's endless. Then his consciousness witnessed a black sphere shrouded in streams of light, causing him to gasp in astonishment. "Is that a black hole? Wait a minute, I'm being pulled in," Ian screamed. And then his consciousness found itself somewhere else entirely. What is it now?" Ian exclaimed, turning his head slightly to look around. And in just a fraction of a second, he caught a glimpse of something. It looked like a giant eye staring right at him, and the moment their gazes met, Ian's face froze, and he broke out in a cold sweat. In the next instant, his consciousness was violently thrown back into his body. Before Ian could even process what happened, a wave of intense nausea washed over him. "Wretch! Wretch!" The sounds of him gagging echoed. As soon as it subsided a bit, Ian hurriedly called out, "Status, status window." Right after his command, a window appeared before him. Without a moment's hesitation, Ian started mashing the increase stat button for mental fortitude, pressing it over and over. As his mental fortitude stat increased, Ian began to calm down and stabilize. Once he no longer felt the chaos, he finally let out a sigh of relief. "I almost lost my mind." "What the hell was that?" Ian muttered as he looked at his status screen. Then he screamed, "Damn it, did I really just dump 9 points into that? Oh well, it can't be helped. I'll need an even higher mental fortitude stat to avoid panicking in the future." Just then, the system suddenly sent him a notification. "Side quest complete, fragment of chaos. Retrieve a fragment from the origin of chaos from the void. Reward fragment of chaos." This sudden quest notification left him puzzled. A side quest? When did I accept that? He then looked down at the description. He mused, "The void and the fragment of chaos.
Does that mean the black hole I just saw was the void? If that's the case, then that thing I saw was an elder god. That's just a wild guess, though. Did that warlock see it, I wonder? If he did see it, there's no way he'd still be alive. He then claimed the reward from the system. A fragment emitting a purple light appeared in his hand. So this is the reward, the fragment of chaos. Ian mumbled, then thought to himself, I can feel something inside my body, an energy similar to the one in that ball-sized mass of chaos. As he thought about it, another theory struck Ian, and he gasped in shock. Wait, chaos? Could this possibly be chaos energy? Even as he said it, Ian himself found it absurd. No, that's impossible. Chaos energy is... But just as Ian reached that thought, he felt the clash of two opposing powers. A familiar wavelength, the same one created when holy power collides with defiled magic. It can't be. Don't tell me. Lauren lost. The scene shifts to a place in Lauren's memory. A few maids are gossiping amongst themselves. Have you heard? Lady Lauren was chosen to be this generation's apostle. I knew it would be her. They say she's incredibly talented. If she keeps this up, isn't the young lady supposed to become the clan head? Well, compared to her young master Vernon is... Just as that was said, another voice quickly cut in, Hey, watch your mouth! And their words also reached the ears of Vernon, who was training nearby at that moment. Lauren then approached from behind with a smile and said, Vernon, it looks like you're training very hard. That's wonderful. I've been needing a sparring partner, and it's been a while since we fought. What do you say? Faced with this invitation from his genius sister, the young man could only give a strained smile and say, Maybe next time, sis. Such was the story of these two siblings when they were young. Returning to the present, Lauren and Vernon were still locked in a decisive battle. It was unclear if Lauren was holding back or if Vernon himself had truly grown stronger. But as it stood, he was overpowering his sister, and then not long after, Lauren was knocked back by Vernon, and even her helmet was sent flying. Philip and Mizu, watching from behind, spoke with concern. Has she used up all her divine power already? She can barely block him. Back to Vernon, he was laughing with great delight. Haha, what's happened to you, my dear sister? And that was just to block a simple sword strike. But just as he was laughing, the smile on his face froze because at that moment Vernon could feel that the dark mage's life had reached its end. Lauren in front of him saw him suddenly stop and wondered aloud, Vernon. Vernon's face darkened and he mumbled, This feeling, the master's energy has vanished. Seeing this, Philip shouted, Master, is he talking about that mage? Mizu next to him heard this and guessed, so that mage is dead. Back to Lauren, she let out a few heavy breaths, then thought joyfully, Ian, he did it. With this thought, she said happily, Then we don't have to fight anymore, Vernon. Let's go back. Back to our home. But in response to Lauren's sincere words, Vernon just said coldly, Now that I've become like this, is there any way for me to go back to how I was before? What nonsense are you spouting? The savior may be gone. But I absolutely cannot give up. I will escape this dark dungeon. I will burn that damned kingdom to the ground. I will take the lives of every living creature to become stronger. I will rule this land with my own power, just like the demons behind that black wall. And to do that, I'll have to kill you right here. After saying that, he began to charge at Lauren once more, but halfway there, his body suddenly froze. At that moment, Mizu and Philip also cried out in shock. That's divine power spreading out. More importantly, look over there. Her divine power has been restored. Following their gaze at that moment, Lauren's body was erupting with a fierce divine power. Even Lauren herself was shocked by this sudden change, and she said, This is divine power overflowing around me. Back to Vernon after seeing Lauren's body erupt with such terrifying power. He slowly backed away and said, It seems you've regained your original divine power, sister. But it doesn't matter. This just makes the fight more balanced. The goddess of death will always be by my side in this battle. This will be the decisive battle between the two of us. Now let's fight with all we've got. After saying this, Vernon's body was also enveloped in a black magical aura, and he charged forward immediately after. Lauren on the opposite side saw this and said worriedly, Stop it, Vernon. This battle is meaningless. Why don't you understand? But despite her words, Vernon still charged ahead without any hesitation. At this point, Lauren also realized that her words were no longer getting through. So she gritted her teeth and decided to fight back. Tears streamed down her face as she decided to strike her own brother. And her appearance at this moment, seemed to bring a moment of clarity to Vernon's eyes. And then the two of them officially clashed. A spray of blood flew out before Lauren's bewildered eyes, while Philip and Mizu also cried out in shock, Unbelievable! She did it. She won. Following their gaze at that moment, the sword in Lauren's hand had pierced through Van Nong. Turning to Lauren, she felt no joy at all at this moment. Only a sense of utter confusion in that instant. Just as their swords were about to clash, Van Nong had stopped his swing. In the final moment, Van Nong didn't swing his sword, Lauren said in a daze, and just then Van Nong's voice could be heard. At the last strike, I regretted it. I guess I really am weak, even until the very end. I never hated you, sis. You always smiled at me. But that just made me feel so insecure about myself. I was always thinking about it. Everything I tried so hard for was really because I wanted you to acknowledge me. But in the end, I still couldn't do it. Cough, cough. After speaking, Van Nong coughed up several mouthfuls of blood, making it seem as if he could pass on at any moment. Seeing this, Lauren worriedly said Van Nong. Van Nong turned towards her. He managed to say, Even so, I'm still happy because I got to see you one last time. And after saying these words, her younger brother breathed his last and collapsed onto his sister's shoulder. And as Lauren was forced to witness this scene firsthand, her face went blank, not knowing what to do. Then her trembling voice called out, Van Nong! Van Nong! Please wake up! Mizu, who was beside her, saw how distraught she was. He was about to offer some words of comfort, but before he could, Lauren let out a heart-wrenching scream. And right after that, an intense surge of holy power erupted from her body. It was so strong that it created a beam of light shooting straight into the sky while also creating a blast of wind. It blew away the surrounding dust. Back to Ian. As soon as he felt the clash of the two powers, he rushed like a madman towards Lauren's group. This is bad. I got distracted fighting that dark mage. So much so that I didn't realize the command spell had been broken. The reason I sensed her faint, dangerous aura from outside is because the mid-boss, the Dark Knight, has appeared. Thinking this, Ian hastily skidded to a halt as he arrived at the place he had sensed, the Knight's chamber. And there, in Ian's sight, Lauren's body was floating in midair, holding her brother's corpse inside a pillar of light created by the holy power. And this crazy situation made it impossible for Ian's mind to keep up. What in the world happened here? Looking at the divine power, it seems like Lauren won. Just then, Philip's voice rang in his ear. Our poor master. Hearing that, Ian began to approach them and asked, how did this happen? Mizu was a bit startled by Ian's appearance. Why are you here? Back to Lauren. The eruption of holy power from within her body had now vanished, and Lauren herself was slowly descending to the ground. Then she gently removed the mask, revealing her younger brother's face. She then spoke to Ian, who was behind her. Ian, you're here. Thank you so much. Without you, it would have been very difficult for me to do this. But I think I've now found my purpose in life. What do you mean? Ian asked with confusion. Lauren replied, I found Van Nong. He was here. But he was killed by a villain who then resurrected and manipulated him. After hearing this, Ian was a bit stunned. The mid-boss, the Dark Knight, was Lauren's brother. I never would have guessed. Back to Lauren, she continued speaking. I pleaded with the goddess. I begged her to save the soul of this poor child. But she did not answer. Because the goddess is a judge of sin, not a savior. But I will absolutely avenge my brother for this. That is what I mean. As Lauren spoke, her body began to be enveloped in a red aura. After hearing her words, Ian asked again, You mean you want to kill everyone involved in this? Yes, that is the revenge I want, Lauren said coldly. And, faced with her statement, Ian fell silent for a moment. Then he drew his sword and said, No, I won't let you drown in your hatred. Ian's action of drawing his sword made Lauren, who was opposite him, start to growl. What do you think you're doing, Ian? You and I still have unfinished business, don't we? You wanted me to investigate the ancient beast Ondel. Have you forgotten? Hearing this, Lauren said, Are you trying to break our contract now? Ian shook his head and said, Up until now, I have never once canceled a contract because of a client's circumstances, not a single time. Besides, if a client wishes to unilaterally break the contract, they must pay a penalty. Therefore, I can't let you return alive without paying, so fight me now. What I have to fight you? Lauren asked. That shouldn't be too difficult, right? You were going to kill a lot of people anyway. Then add me to that list or you'll die instead. Ian's tone made Lauren tremble while Philip at the side immediately spoke up. You two please calm down. But before he could finish, Mizu quickly clamped a hand over his mouth and said, Quiet. Don't interfere, it's pointless. She turned back towards Lauren. At that moment, she also looked at Ian, her eyes filled with killing intent, and said, Are you saying you're going to kill me? After speaking, she stared intently at Ian, and Ian met her gaze without flinching. In the end, it was Lauren who conceded, sighing, as she said, I've already lost someone precious to me today. I don't want to lose anyone else. And as soon as she said this, the red aura surrounding her slowly faded away. Ian, standing before her, then asked, So you mean you're not canceling the contract? That's right. Our contract won't be affected, but my revenge is another matter, Lauren said. After hearing this, Ian replied, I have no intention of stopping your revenge, but will it succeed? Hearing this, Lauren asked quizzically, Are you saying my method of revenge is wrong, or that it would be too difficult for me to do it alone? I mean both, Ian said. Hearing that, Lauren proposed, What if you help me with my revenge? That would be a different story, Ian said coldly. He then added, Let's all head outside. I don't think this is the place to discuss things like this. After that, everyone quickly went outside, and Van Ong's body was carefully placed in the vehicle by Lauren and Philip, while Ian and Mizu prepared some food. Just then, Mizu's voice piped up. You handled that well, Ian. What do you mean? Ian asked. Don't pretend you don't know. She was glaring at you like that, and you still weren't afraid. You knew beforehand that she would never kill you, right? Mizu said with a smile. Hearing this, Ian coldly replied, Of course not, which made Mizu jump and exclaim, Huh, really? So, everything you said back there was serious. Ian then slowly explained, This was an exception. I didn't think things would end this way. At this point, Ian began to think to himself, I had no intention of killing her. I just wanted to calm her down by cutting off one of her arms. In that state, she might have gone berserk and fought back, which could have led to her death, but I didn't want to see that happen. She was so surprised when she saw me draw my sword. Clearly, she was just furious and couldn't control her emotions after losing her younger brother back then. In the end, I still couldn't stop her from becoming an apostle of the goddess of revenge. And while Ian was still lost in thought, Lauren and Philip finished their task and approached them. Not done yet, Philip asked. Hearing him say that,
Mizu casually shoved a meat skewer right into his mouth and said, "Shut your mouth and eat this." Turning back towards Ian, she then turned to ask Lauren, "Have you moved the body?"
It's done. Thank you, Lauren said calmly. Then Ian asked, "Are you all right now?"
"What do you mean?" Lauren asked, puzzled. Hearing her question, Ian slowly explained, "Now that you've become an apostle of revenge, I think a lot of things about you will change." At this, Ian thought with a bit of dismay. Her divine power has turned red. It's not blue like before. She has now completely become an apostle of the goddess of revenge, just like in the game. Turning back to Lauren, she was also looking at the palm of her hand and said, "That's right. From now on, the goddess will only grant me divinity for the sake of revenge. This level of extreme power, I can use stronger divine power for revenge. If I were to condone injustice, I would lose my divine power. That was the old rule, the rules I had to follow. As an apostle of the goddess of light will disappear, now I can do anything to get my revenge." Thinking this, Lauren said with a determined voice, "I don't regret my choice. However, if I can't kill that mage with my own hands, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Driven by my emotions, I abandoned justice to get revenge." And just as she said this, Ian, who was in front of her, casually tossed her a bag. He then said, "This is his head. You can take it. The battle between me and him still happened as it was meant to."
I killed him during the fight.
Lauren began to open the bag and looked at the dark mage's head, after which she fell into a deep silence. It was impossible to know what she was thinking, and it seems that sensing this heavy atmosphere was a bit awkward, so Philip coughed a few times and asked, "So did you kill him with magic?" I was also wondering why they hadn't asked about that yet. Ian thought to himself, turning to Mizu as he saw the clueless Philip casually ask that very question. He could only rub his face and say, "Philip, let me give you some sincere advice. You should think things through a bit more before you ask them, you know." Hearing this, the dense Philip was still completely lost and said, "Huh?" At that point, Mizu knew this guy had zero social experience when it came to adventurers, so he had no choice but to explain, "He hides his ability to use magic simply because he doesn't want anyone to know. He only revealed it now because he had to save us. He had to go all out to defeat that mage. We should be thanking him, not asking questions like that." And with Mizu's words, it finally clicked for Philip. He then awkwardly scratched his head, turned to Ian, and said, "I'm sorry, Ian, and thank you." "I'll take that secret to my grave," Philip declared. Seeing him like that, Ian gave the guy a wink and said, "All right." Turning to Lauren, who had just snapped out of her own thoughts, she also spoke, "Ian, since you killed the mage, we'll give you an additional reward. What is it that you want?" Hearing her say that, Ian thought for a moment.
"Initially, I was planning to demand all the spoils, but they ended up being so generous. I'll just decide on this later."
With that in mind, Ian spoke up. "I'll tell you when the time is right."
"When the time is right,"
Lauren murmured, and right after that, she unfastened the sword at her hip, held it out to Ian, and said, "Then, do you want this sword?" When Philip saw Lauren offering her own sword to Ian, he couldn't help but cry out, "What? That's a sword forged from imperial meteoric steel." Lauren, however, ignored his outburst and continued speaking to Ian. "Take it. It is a very well-deserved reward." At this, Ian started to break out in a sweat. I never expected she'd give me this." Ian thought joyfully as he took the sword and said, "I'll make good use of it." And the moment he held the sword, a system notification appeared. Sword of Retribution. Rank Unique. Ability power to punish disciples of darkness. Level 2. Cooldown 24 hours. Both the notification and the description of the sword took Ian by surprise. Huh. The item's name and its ability are different from in the game. In fact, it's much stronger. In the game, it was a sword. That could only be obtained by killing Lauren. But this one hasn't been tainted by corrupted blood yet, so there's no penalty other than the cooldown. This is amazing. Turning back to Lauren, she explained, "That sword has been with me for a long time. It may not be famous, but it will be useful." "No, this is a famous sword," Ian said as he drew the blade to inspect it. He then gave it a little swing to feel its weight. "Nice. It feels heavier than it looks."
"Right now I can't swing it as effortlessly as Lauren did, but that's okay.
I'll get the hang of it eventually." And as he was happily admiring the sword, Lauren, who was opposite him, spoke up. "Ian, from now on, you will act as my proxy. I hope you will uncover all the tales of the beasts of Great Ondel, and you must return alive." Hearing this, Ian sheathed the sword, then smiled and said, "You should be more worried about yourself. If you want revenge, be careful. For now, don't reveal your true intentions to anyone and don't kill anyone. At the very least, wait until I get back." Lauren fell silent for a moment at his words, as if she couldn't bring herself to promise him that. Seeing this, Ian continued to persuade her, "You have to stay alive to pay me my reward when I return, right?"
"All right. I promise I won't cause any trouble until the day you return," Lauren said dejectedly.
Just then, Mizu, who was standing nearby, coughed a few times after seeing that everyone was done talking. Then he said, "We've said everything that needs to be said, right? We've been through some tough times together, so now how about this?" As he spoke, he pulled the cask of wine from his bag, grinning as he showed it off to everyone.
"Wine?"
Philip exclaimed in amazement, while Ian wondered, "He's been carrying that with him. But how is it not spoiled? That's really strange." Meanwhile, Lauren, after seeing Mizu pull out the wine cask, also said, "I don't usually like wine, but I'll drink today. We have to, don't we? We faced life and death together. There's no way we can part ways without sharing a drink," Mizu said with a grin.
At that, Ian also smiled to himself and thought, ha, on a day like today, you have to drink. And just like that, the four of them began to happily clink their cups together, laughing and talking. Sometime later, a while after the group had parted ways. Now, Ian was leisurely sipping a cup of water, looking at the forest before him and saying, although I'm in a dark forest in the middle of the night, but I can see everything clearly without using any magic. Could this be thanks to the chaos fragment? Ian's mind started to wander. He was completely oblivious to the several bodies already lying in pools of blood behind him. At that moment, another guy, his face covered in blood, called out to him, How? How could you drink the poison and still be okay? That poison is strong enough to knock out an elephant. He began to scream, but Ian just calmly replied, Is that so? As for why, Ian was still up and about after drinking the poison. It was because he had the level 3 poison resistance skill. It was the same skill he used to survive back in Chapter 4. Back in the present, Ian slowly approached the green-haired man. This terrified him. He swung his sword forward, screaming, Don't come any closer. And of course, words like these might work on a kindergartner, but for a cold-blooded animal like Ian, they fell on deaf ears. As soon as he got close, he quickly drew his sword and slashed right at him. The green-haired guy gritted his teeth and swung his own sword to counter, but then his eyes widened in horror as he realized his sword was starting to crack from Ian's attack. A moment later, his blade couldn't withstand the pressure and snapped in two. At the same time, he was thrown backward by Ian's blow. Wait, just listen to me, he yelled desperately. But before the man could finish, Ian casually plunged his sword right through the back of his hand. The man couldn't help but squeal like a stuck pig, and then Ian glared at the green-haired man and said, Don't spew such nonsense. If you've planned to get rid of someone, then you should have been prepared for the risks involved. Hearing that, the green-haired man started to cry and explain, I only used the poison to knock you out. We were just going to steal your valuables, that's all. Is that so? Ian said softly, then began to twist the sword in his hand. This made the green-haired man cry out in even more pain, and as he gasped, Ian poured the contents of his cup straight into the man's mouth, causing him to choke and sputter. Ian stared at him intently and said, You really only wanted to knock me unconscious, you say? If that's really the case, then drinking this won't kill you. Hearing this, the green-haired man stared right at Ian, gritted his teeth, and said, You bastard! As he spoke those words, it seemed the poison was already taking effect. A few veins on his face turned purple, and within seconds he coughed up a large mouthful of blood and died. Seeing that the man had met his end, Ian sheathed his sword and said, If you had just told the truth, you wouldn't have had to die in such a painful way. Just then, a scream from behind caught Ian's attention. From his point of view, the scream belonged to some guy who had just been stabbed to death by the cowardly Philip. After finishing off his enemy, Philip was still tense and panting heavily. Ian walked over to him and said, Now they've shown their true colors. At Ian's words, Philip turned to him and asked, Why didn't you help me fight them just now? I already told you. From now on, things are going to be very different. Let's go back to when the group was preparing to part ways after leaving the gloomy forest. The group split in two. At the time, Lauren had convinced me, so I decided to head to the royal castle to report what I had witnessed. And that's when Lauren asked Philip to go with me. Naturally, Philip was completely surprised and asked, Why all of a sudden? Lauren began to explain, Ian is an incredibly important witness. We can't let him go alone. You must stay by his side, support him, and act as a witness to what he has experienced. But Philip, hearing this, clearly didn't want to and quickly said, But I have to look after you, my lady. But unfortunately for our cowardly friend, Lauren already had Mizu with her. I have Mitsu here with me. He will be my bodyguard, right, Mizu? Of course, milady, Mizu said cheerfully. Turning back to me, I was debating whether I should bring this burden along. Is another witness really necessary? Still having someone with me could be convenient. They owe me a lot from this past while anyway, so I'll just consider this them repaying their debt. With that thought, I accepted the idea of having an extra servant to run errands for me. But even so, I had to give a warning first. I understand your intentions, but this is going to be dangerous. That means he could very well be killed. Are you all right with that? Just hearing the words risk of being killed made Philip's face turn pale, but Lauren confidently assured me Philip is a guard. As a noble warrior, he was very determined. Philip listened to the young lady. Hearing that made him want to cry. Master, do you really want me to do that? Lauren saw how dejected he was. She walked over, gave him a few encouraging pats on the shoulder, and said, Philip, you will learn a lot by going with Ian. If you serve him loyally, you will mature a great deal. Hearing this, Philip knew he couldn't escape his fate, so he had no choice but to accept saying understood. Back in the present, Ian spoke to him in a serious tone. If you want to come with me, you have to get stronger. And although he seemed cold on the outside, Ian was actually a little pleased. This kid's more talented than he looks. Then Ian continued, You were the one who told me to stay with these guys in this dark forest. And that's an undeniable fact. Hearing this, Philip was truly at a loss for words. So he had to accept it, saying, Perhaps you want me to experience things like this. Is this the true face of the kingdom? What are you muttering about? Hurry up, treat your wound, and let's get moving. As Ian spoke, he tossed him a roll of bandages. Philip then asked, Aren't we forgetting something here? Yes, we are. Something very important. The most important thing is their stuff, Ian said, glancing at the corpses behind them.
You want to take their things? Philip yelled in disbelief. In response to his question, Ian put on a very sinister expression and said, "It's called a transfer of ownership. I'm sure you've seen it many times. In the kingdom's border region. Right, but for some reason, even though Ian had given a perfectly reasonable explanation, this sheltered brat Philip just had to shout, 'By then I would have already returned to the barracks.' Isn't this just stealing from others and making it our own? This is completely unacceptable." And the result of yelling at Ian was a new lump on his head. In the end, he still had to go and loot the bodies. And after finding a bag full of silver coins, his movements suddenly became much quicker as Ian watched from the side. Look at this guy. Looting so fast, he looked so happy. And just a moment ago, he was pretending to have the spirit of a knight. And not long after they finished looting the corpses, Philip's gear got a major upgrade. A new belt, new gloves, a new sword, and even new boots. After equipping all this new stuff, the two of them turned to look at a sparkling chest and said, "There's one more thing. This chest." As for Ian, after looking at the chest, he recalled a few things. It was a securely locked chest. He remembered that before they gave him the poisoned drink. They had said they were transporting something for a client in Rosa. Turning back to Philip, he saw the boy looking at him and asking, "Am I the only one who wants to open this?" Hearing him say that, Ian thought to himself, "I think this is a quest I missed in the game. I'd prefer to open it during the day, but I guess this will have to do." At this, Ian approached the chest. "Time to get some stuff from my subspace," Ian thought, and began to take a few things out of his inventory. Then he picked up a knife and warned Philip behind him, "Stay right there." Ian then began to channel mana into the knife he was holding and plunged it straight into the crystal embedded on the front of the chest. The powerful impact shattered it into pieces. Instantly, the lid of the chest popped open. And then, to Ian's complete astonishment, a pair of hands emerged, reaching out and tackling him to the ground. This series of unexpected actions caught Ian off guard, and he was pinned down by the shadowy figure. He then widened his eyes to see who dared to attack him. And as Ian looked, the figure in front of him had pointed ears, platinum blonde hair, and red eyes. From these features, a name flashed in Ian's mind, Elf. But then, Ian took a closer look at the girl's eye color and fangs, and denied it. No, this can't be an elf. And just as Ian suspected, this definitely couldn't be an elf, because no elf could open its mouth this wide, or have this many fangs. Philip, seeing Ian about to be devoured, rushed over to help him, shouting, but Ian reacted quickly. He immediately struggled with one hand and broke free from the white-haired girl's grip. At the same time, he swung the short sword in his hand towards her, but this white-haired girl's teeth were incredibly hard. As soon as she saw the blade coming, she happily bit down and shattered it in an instant. After she was done, she casually spat out the remaining metal shards from her mouth and praised Ian, "Your flesh smells delicious." Back to Ian, he now understood everything. "I get it now. It's because of her that I couldn't put the coffin into my subspace. That's because living beings can't enter that space." Then he looked at this girl's appearance and guessed, "From what I know, this is the only vampire elf in this world. She's actually the blood-sucking elf Tesla. She will drink the blood of the vampire lord Lucas of the Shadow Kingdom and be reborn as the Blood Queen in the future. She's a very important boss character." Thinking this, an idea suddenly struck Ian, and he wondered, "Wait a minute, was it the vampires who gave the mission to those mercenaries? Before, I don't know the details, but right now she looks much more feral than what I remember." Turning back to Tesla, she spoke to Ian. "I escaped from that coffin, so instead of killing you, I'll thank you." Hearing this, Ian calmly replied to her, "If you want to thank me, then get back in that coffin." That, and of course, Tesla wasn't about to follow Ian's request. At that moment, she started looking at Ian with a hungry gaze and said, "I'm so hungry I'm drooling. Looking at you, I think I could just eat you right now." Ian wasn't surprised to hear that. "I knew it." As he spoke, he began to grip his sword, ready to draw it and fight at any moment. But Tesla, seeing Ian's posture, just smirked and said, "So feisty. I'll spare you for now. Let's meet again on another occasion. The taste of your blood is so fresh, it's hard to forget. See you later. Don't you die before I see you again." After speaking, she dashed forward, and Ian, seeing that she had left, let out a sigh of relief and said, "I can't believe she just left." Just then, Philip, who was beside him, turned and asked, "Should we go after her? How could we possibly catch her?" "She'll come find us one day, just like she said," Ian replied calmly, but Philip, now a little worried, said, "She didn't look like a normal elf. Did we just release a monster? Even if we hadn't let her out, she would have found a way to escape on her own. Those mercenaries probably waited for daylight to capture her," Ian said, moving on from the blood-sucking girl. Then Ian turned to Philip and said, "Go get the horses." Hearing this, Philip was a bit surprised and said, "What, we're just leaving like this? You want to stand here and wait for monsters to smell the blood and swarm this place?" Ian said. Philip knew Ian's words were reasonable, but he still complained, "I haven't even been with you for a full day, and we've already run into so much trouble. First the mercenaries, and now an elf. What other dangerous things are going to happen? I'm pretty sure I'm going through a streak of bad luck. Oh, holy Jesus, please protect me." Philip switched into prayer mode. When danger appears, the scene shifts to the city of Ondel in the Kingdom of Israel, right now in a certain tavern. The two of them, Ian and Philip, started to walk in, and the others inside the tavern began to glance over at them. Being sized up, Philip also noticed these prying eyes, so he turned and whispered to Ian, "I think it'd be better to sit further inside." "Why do we have to sit in a corner?" Ian complained. Hearing this, Philip began to explain in a low voice, "If a fight breaks out, we won't get dragged into it.
Don't you remember how I almost died last time? Turning to Ian after hearing Philip's words, he smiled to himself, thinking, he's pretty cautious. We've had to sleep outdoors a few times while passing through 2 villages. I guess he's learned a lot in these 2 weeks. But he's still just a rookie. Looking at him, no one would think he's a royal guard, would they? Back to Philip after looking around for a bit to see if anyone was still paying attention to them. He then whispered to Ian, "What's your plan from here on out?" "Why are you whispering?" Ian asked. "What if someone hears us if I speak up?" Hearing that, Ian said, "If they hear, let them. If you just act normal, no one will pay you any mind." "I've learned another lesson then," Philip said. "What is there to learn in a place like this?" Ian grumbled. Getting back to the matter at hand, Ian answered his question. "First, I'll stay here and assess the situation. If anyone shows up asking about a missing soldier, that'll be very suspicious." And while they were talking, a waitress came over and asked, "What can I get for you two?" "What's good here?" Ian asked. Hearing this, the waitress started to make recommendations. "Nothing too special. The sausages are pretty good. If you order bread, it comes with a stew. You can order that too." "So there are a lot of mercenaries here. This place must have plenty of work, right? What do I have to do to get a good mission?" As Ian spoke, he took out a silver coin and gave it to the girl. "Consider it payment for information." The waitress, seeing Ian was willing to spend a whole silver coin, was a bit stunned. Then right after, she quickly tucked the coin into her chest and said, "If you take on a big job right away, you're likely to run into conflict. This place has its own rules. First, you have to start with small jobs, unless it's something so dangerous that no one else dares to take it." Hearing her say that, Ian smiled and said, "That's good. That's exactly what we want. A dangerous mission." Time passed quickly, and it was the next morning. Just then, a large man walked into the tavern, muttering, "My head. Must have had too much to drink last night." And then, he saw a crowd gathered together inside the tavern and wondered, "Huh? Why is everyone gathered here?" And to satisfy his own curiosity, the man ran over and asked, "What's everyone doing?" A blonde man heard him and said, "Oh, it's Patton." "There you are. I'm running a betting pool. Want in?" "A betting pool?" Patton asked, intrigued. The blonde man then began to explain everything. "Last night, 2 guys came to this place. You know the underground waterway, right? It was built by goblins a long time ago. They went in there. The waterway." Hearing this, Patton was a bit confused. "It's full of garbage. What's in there to even go for?" And as soon as he said that, Patton thought of something and exclaimed, Wait a minute. No way. They went in there to catch the giant 4-eyed crocodile, didn't they?" "That's right." The blonde man and everyone else burst out laughing as if they could already see their failure. The failure of the 2 they were talking about. Back to Patton, after understanding the situation, he asked, "Just the 2 of them. So what's the bet?" Hearing this, the blonde man said, "The bet is whether they'll make it back by midnight or not. If they make it back, the winners take all the money. If they don't return, the losers have to buy drinks for everyone." After hearing this, Patton thought for a moment, and while he was lost in thought, the blonde man's voice rang out again. "What are you worried about? If you want in, place your bet." Hearing this, Patton didn't hesitate any longer and said, "All right. I'm in too. I bet they'll make it back." The others shouted when they heard Patton's bet. "What, are you serious, Patton?" "That's right. If they come back, I'll make a fortune. Or maybe I'll have to buy drinks for everyone. That's fine too." As he spoke, Patton placed a silver coin on the table. Seeing this, the blonde man quickly snatched the coin and said, "You're a good man." At the same time, someone else slung an arm around Patton's shoulders and asked with a grin, "Why'd you bet like that? Are they as strong as us?" Hearing that, Patton grinned and said, "You idiot, just worry about your own work and making money. Those guys, they're really something special." And while the group was in a lively discussion, a sudden rumbling sound echoed, making everyone wonder what that was. Then the rumbling continued, prompting Patton to quickly press his ear to the ground to listen before saying, "I think this vibration is coming from below." Hearing that, the bald guy broke into a sweat and said, "Don't tell me it's those 2. What the hell are they doing down there?" And just as he finished saying that, the vibrations became so strong that even the diner began to shake violently. Seeing this, everyone quickly got down, covered their heads, and waited for the tremor to pass. Then not long after, the shaking finally stopped. At this point, everyone calmed down a bit, but then right after that, the sound of footsteps came from outside, making Patton wonder aloud, this sound, could it be? And just then Ian and Philip walked into the diner, both of them carrying something in their arms. Then Ian threw the battered corpse of a 4-eyed crocodile down in front of everyone and said, "Go get someone. We hunted the monster." The waitress was still stunned, not understanding what was happening, when Philip from behind quickly stood up and said, "Didn't you hear him? A soldier, a captain, anyone will do. Hurry up and call them over here." He yelled, and not long after, a few soldiers appeared to carry away the body of the 4-eyed crocodile. Meanwhile, their story had already spread to the other adventurers there. They actually killed the crocodile in the sewer. That's incredible. They used oil to burn it out and then catch it, right? No, they just used a hammer? I think the basement got wrecked too. How could they even carry it out of there? Back with Ian, a soldier asked in amazement. "Is it true you 2 caught that crocodile?" Ian heard him and replied, "That's right. But the sewer was slightly damaged. If you call a construction crew, they should be able to fix it." "I understand. The reward will be paid out within 3 days," the captain said worriedly. Then they quickly left. As for Ian, after watching them leave, he couldn't help but curse, "Damn it, I've washed 3 times and even changed my clothes. But my body still stinks. The clothes I washed. I wonder if they still smell. Ugh, if only I had some soap."
Turning to Philip, his spirits had hit rock bottom. I think one experience like that is more than enough. There definitely won't be a second time. Yeah, Ian agreed. Just then, Philip glanced at the other patrons in the inn and said, Huh, their attitude towards us has completely changed. Hearing this, Ian wasn't surprised. At all. The world of mercenaries revolves around strength and combat skills. They don't look down on us anymore. And just as Ian said that, a cheerful voice called out to them, There you guys are. Thanks to you two, I won the jackpot on my bet. That's enough money for me to live it up for the next 2 months. This was, of course, Patton. He then turned to the waitress. Hey, I want to order some food for my 2 brothers here. After ordering, he turned to Ian and said, If you don't mind, let's talk for a bit. Hearing this, Ian said bluntly, If you have something to say, just say it. Patton slowly sat down and said, Your personality is as special as your skills. It's a pleasure to meet you both. My name is Patton. Hearing this, the two introduced themselves. I'm Ian. And I'm Philip. After the introductions, Patton smiled and said, For guys as talented as you two, I'm surprised I've never heard your names before. Where are you from? From the mountains, Ian said coldly. Hearing this, Patton kept his smile and said, It's fine if you don't want to elaborate. Where did you work 'em for? You must have made a name for yourselves there, right? This constant questioning like an interrogation was starting to... Philip beside him started to get angry and said, Why are you questioning us like this is some kind of interrogation? After saying that, Philip seemed to realize something and fell silent while Ian saw that Philip had already said too much. So he decided to lay his cards on the table. We're not criminals. I think that's all you need to know. Get to the point. Just say what you have to say. Stop beating around the bush. As Ian spoke, he started looking at the long-haired man behind Patton, and his words seemed to startle the two of them slightly. But before they could say anything, Ian continued, Why is a nobleman like him pretending to be a mercenary? Or more accurately, pretending to be from the lower class? His words made Philip, who was next to him, jump. At that moment, the long-haired man on the other side burst out laughing and said, Ha ha, so we've been found out. Was our acting that bad? Hearing this, Patton stopped pretending and turned to the long-haired man, saying in a dejected voice, I'm sorry, young master, our cover has been blown. It's all right. It was obvious we couldn't fool someone like him, the long-haired man said, patting Patton on the shoulder. He then sat down at the table and said, My apologies, we were rude to you. You know how it is. Some mercenaries have very dangerous backgrounds, so we needed to be sure before we talked. Hearing this, Ian wasn't angry and simply replied calmly, I understand. I accept your apology. Ha 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 ha, thank you for understanding. In that case, allow me to formally introduce myself. My name is Declan Butcher. Hearing his introduction, Philip, who was beside him, was stunned and said, Butcher! Butcher is... You're Lord Ondel's son, aren't you? Why are you investigating the backgrounds of ordinary mercenaries like us? Ian asked calmly. Hearing that, Declan began to explain, My job is to manage the mercenaries in this city. Besides, you two are exceptionally skilled, so I wanted to meet you. Meanwhile, Ian, hearing him say that, he had a thought. There are a lot of mercenaries here, but life is very peaceful. They must have established many rules to make management easier. I just don't know them yet. Back to Philip, he now spoke up. I had no idea you were someone of such high standing. I apologize for being a bit rude earlier. Anyone your age would do the same. I understand, Declan replied cheerfully. He also revealed a bit about himself. I'm a second son from a concubine. My mother was just a commoner. I see, Philip said, turning back toward Ian. At this point, he asked, So do you trust us now? Is there any more information you need from us? No. Hearing Ian's words, Declan replied seriously, No, that's more than enough. Then let's get straight to the point, shall we? Would you two like to work for me? I want to appoint you as captain and vice-captain in my army. At this sudden offer, Philip couldn't help but exclaim, You mean you want mercenaries like us to become soldiers? Hearing this, Declan replied, That's right, because a war is likely to break out soon. Other lords may look down on the skills of mercenaries, but I don't. Back to Ian after hearing this offer. He didn't rush to agree, but instead asked, Have you received the Lord's permission for this? Of course. This puts my father at no disadvantage, and it even helps us gain more strength, Declan replied cheerfully. But Ian still had some doubts and asked, But to become a soldier, one needs to have a perfect record. That's true, I don't deny that. However, you two made it back alive. That means you're strong enough, so it's a very tempting offer, isn't it? Faced with his friendly words, Ian really began to think. His manners and attitude are unassuming, but he's definitely not naive. From his eyes to his expression, he's clearly not someone to be underestimated. Thinking this, Ian gave a small smile and said, No, I can't give you an answer right away. Hearing this, Declan was a bit taken aback and asked, Why is that? There is a mission I have yet to complete. Your offer is no small thing. I need to consider it. Right. Hearing this, Declan was still puzzled and said, But the crocodile hunting job is already finished, isn't it? At this, So he figured something out and kept talking. So you're here to carry out another commission then? That's right, Ian said, thinking to himself, he catches on fast. After Declan realized that Ian still had to carry out another commission of some sort. He hesitated for a moment, then decided and said, All right, what other mission are you on? I'll help you. In exchange, you'll consider my offer. How about it? Are you serious? Ian said excitedly, because this would make their mission a bit easier. But just then, Philip, who was beside them, spoke up. Excuse me, but if we talk here, the details of our commission will be exposed. Hearing this, Declan understood the issue and turned to Patton. Ah, that's an unwritten rule for mercenaries. Isn't that right, Patton? Tell everyone to back off. Yes, I understand, Patton said hurriedly. After waiting for everyone to leave, the two of them began to explain their mission to Declan. After Declan heard them out, he told them what he knew. Nep from the army, I assume he's dead. You said he was transporting a prisoner before he died, right? That's right. Our job is to find the person who killed him, Ian said calmly. Declan, sitting across from him, heard this and asked, So what happened to him? I can't go into detail, but his death wasn't natural, Ian replied calmly. But as soon as Declan heard this, his face immediately turned serious. Not natural. What do you mean? So there's corruption within the army? That's right. I figured you'd know more about that than we do. What do you think? Hearing Ian's words, Declan thought for a moment before saying, Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with the internal situation. Of the warlord's army, the one who gives them orders is my father, and Mason is his successor. Hearing this, Ian said with regret, If that's the case, then you can't help us. But before Ian could be disappointed for more than a second, Declan's confident voice rang out. No, I didn't say I couldn't help. Coincidentally, I'm also interested in this. Just wait patiently, and I will give you an answer. In the name of Berchet. A moment later, after gathering information from his subordinates, Declan nodded and continued, I've looked into it, and just as you said, it's very strange. The soldier named Nep and the others who were transporting the prisoner, they all have one thing in common. Their parents are either dead or they're orphans. So if they were to disappear, no one would come looking for them. Ian let out a smirk, and Declan acknowledged it. Exactly. Their siblings, friends, and everyone else believed they were transferred to Angeline. And the one who gave the order is a man named Bradley. He's a commander and also my brother Mason's right-hand man. Now that you know everything, what will you do? Declan asked with amusement, waiting for Ian's reaction. In response, Ian calmly set his beer mug down on the table and said, I need to have a friendly chat. Hearing that, Declan's eyes showed genuine surprise. A chat with them? That man Bradley is extremely cunning. I doubt you'll get the information you want out of him. With a thunk, Ian stabbed the knife from his belt directly into the table. I have an excellent tool for conversation. It has a spell that compels everyone to speak the truth. Hearing this, Declan understood Ian's intentions. He started to burst out laughing with excitement. Ha ha! I'd like to see that spell for myself. Can I join in? Across from him, Ian saw no reason to refuse. However, he did add one condition. Why not? But you have to arrange a place for us to have this chat. Ha ha, of course. I'll send my men as soon as I find a suitable place. It won't be long. I'm also very curious to see how your mission ends. With that, Declan returned to his subordinates and chatted cheerfully with them. This isn't nearly enough. Everyone drink up. It's on me tonight. Ha ha, long live the young master. The group of men cheered at the free round of beer. Meanwhile, as Declan returned to his table, Ian quietly thought to himself, Everything went so smoothly, he said quietly. Across from him, Philip had to admire Ian's skill. I think you've truly mastered the art of persuading people. Forget about that. Then Ian's expression turned serious as he asked quietly, Now continue with your part. Did you do as I told you? Yes. I went to tail him like you asked. Turns out I'm pretty good at this. Philip started to complain, but as soon as he heard this, Ian gripped his sword tightly, making the man quickly recoil. It's nothing. In short, nothing special happened, just like you said. I also heard about his reputation around here. Hearing this, a smile crept onto Ian's face. Looks like our little boy has all grown up. He knows what to do without being told. Phillips shook his head wearily. It's not like I could just plug my ears and ignore it. The people of Ondel simply adore this young master. And one more thing. His mother died a few years ago and the Marquis adopted him. But it seems his eldest son, Mason, isn't too fond of him, so everyone is afraid a war will break out. That young master will be sent to the most dangerous battlefield to meet his end. A classic tale of a turbulent family saga, but based on my observations, I don't think he's going down. And if that's true, it could only be because he's hiding it extremely well. Phillips offered his assessment while Ian had his own thoughts. That's right. Although he doesn't worship chaos or darkness, I can still smell blood, Ian said quietly. The scene shifts to his private room where he is now alone. He now had time to think about more things. I got the best room just a few days after arriving in Ondel. The women here are strangely comfortable with me. But thanks to that, it feels really peaceful. Let's see if Connat's research is of any use. As he spoke, he flipped through the pages of the journal, searching for information. At first, I was furious and vehemently refused. In the end, I began to listen to the priest. Everything I thought was real turned out to be a lie. A classic psychopath's memoir. Dominating magic spells are meaningless to the people of this world. Then learning magic with skill points like me is just as meaningless, Ian said with a sigh and began to think again. Just as I predicted the man who brought Connat down to the underground tomb in Adralon. When the time is right, Connat will reveal himself as his subordinate and turn the entire kingdom of Israel into a living hell. And in the end, the void will be brought to this land. Desiring a life ruled not by gods or demons, but by the old gods. It's like smelling vomit, Ian said with disgust, thinking of the image of the void eye that he had encountered before. Then, he looked again at the streams of purple energy enveloping his hand and thought, Chaos Force. The energy of the pure void. It's like cursed magic, and yet somehow, It's also a type of holy power. This must be the power that heretics, demons, or someone who has been corrupted would use. Additional content, the fall of Aquilonia. Those who enter this state will begin to transform. A knight becomes a dark knight. A barbarian becomes a berserker. A scout becomes an assassin. A priest becomes an elder priest, and a mage becomes a dark mage. Upon choosing to fall, your role, optional skills, and all related quests will change. You can fall at any time, but the risk is too high. A level reset and relationships with the main characters become unpredictable. But to have obtained Chaos Force without falling, even when I receive an apostle quest, all restrictions disappear, which is good. In any case, my mana is running low, so I'd better look into this, Ian thought to himself.